My ex divorced me and now wants to be together again after 4 years. Throwaway, since I don't want to be linked back to my main account. I'm 46 female and my ex-husband is 45. We were college sweethearts and married at 26. Right before we got married, I gave birth to a beautiful daughter who is now 21 years old. I loved both of them dearly, and we've been a happy family for about 16 years before everything went down. Our only problem was my ex's mother. She always had a strong dislike for me. She never thought that I was good enough for her baby boy. We had many fights, and my ex cut contact with her after the wedding when she tried wearing white to it. We had many encounters with her years after that, sending us gifts for my daughter and purposely trying to get us to contact her again to seeing her outside our house. 4 years ago, I got home from work to see my ex and his mother together on the couch. My ex was on the verge of tears, yelling, and calling me a cheater. I tried to explain that I didn't, but his mother supposedly had proof, saying she saw me with another man out in a restaurant together. I am very faithful and loyal, but he refused to hear me out. We got into a big argument before he packed up and left to stay with his mother. When my daughter got home from a friend's house, she too started to blame me when she found out from her dad. She went to live with her dad while he sent out divorce papers. It took about a year before it was finalized. He got custody of her, and I was granted visitation rights, but she never wanted to see me. It took a long time to move on. I sought therapy and fell into a huge depression. I knew my ex's mother made it up to tear us apart. I can't believe he listened to her so carelessly. I don't blame my daughter, but it still hurts. I moved out of the house to allow my ex and my daughter to live there. I ended up moving to a small apartment, and it's been 4 years, and I started to finally be happy again. I made new friends. We had so much fun, and I got a promotion at work. I still missed my family, my daughter, but I couldn't do anything about it. Then 2 days ago, my daughter called me. It's been 4 years since I've last seen or heard from her. She said that my ex's mother admitted to lying. She said that my ex got a new girlfriend and his mother was furious, claiming he shouldn't have one after all the trouble she did to get rid of me. They got into a heated fight before he kicked his mum out. I nearly wanted to cry. I thought she would never admit to it, and now I'm hearing my daughter. She asked to meet up and apologized so many times, and I told her that we could meet tomorrow. Yesterday, I met her at a restaurant, but she brought along my ex. Something that she never mentioned, nor have I agreed upon. He was apologizing, saying how much he missed me, and that he dumped his girlfriend. He wanted us to be together again. I excused myself and left them there. I got back home to lots of phone calls from my daughter and text messages from her. She wanted us to talk, and she called me a butthole for leaving. I told her that I wasn't comfortable and that she needed to understand. I had to mute my phone and put it down for a bit. I haven't responded yet, and I'm not sure what to do. I love her, but I can't talk to her with him there. Not yet, anyways. It feels so fast. I wanted to do it one-on-one. I am deeply hurt and crying as I'm typing this, and I don't know what to do. In the comments, I think it's worth noting that they still aren't believing you. They're only believing what dear old grandma had to say. It took her coming clean to clear your name when it was her word against yours to begin with. So it's not that they are believing you now, it is that they are still believing anything that she says and they are not listening to you. Especially your daughter with her ambush tactics with your ex. I'm not saying never make peace with him, but I think that it's entirely reasonable to never get back together with your ex and to have a cautious relationship with your daughter, doubly so now that she has stabbed you twice. Once with believing the dog, and once with this ambush dinner behavior. Dog as in dear old grandma, obviously. In a comment, OP mentions that apparently mother-in-law paid someone to confess to being the affair partner. Not that this changes much, but it's a bit of an upgrade from he said, she said. Okay, that is an upgrade, but I'd still want to know how they met and knew each other, etc., etc., especially knowing Dog is the sort to show up at her son's wedding in white. I mean, tell me you want to screw the groom without telling me you want to screw the groom, why don't you? I'd want 3 forms of ID, goddammit. Lol? Why are they acting as if they are doing you a favor or forgiving you for something that you didn't do and are like, cool, let's go back together? Like, are they serious? The daughter calling her mother a butthole for leaving while she didn't even contact her for 4 years or even try to hear her out baffles me, like, WTF, mate. And also brought along the man who divorced her without mentioning it? Did she think that it wouldn't be upsetting? In what context would you go to a private meeting and not tell the person that you were bringing someone with you? She must think that life is like a Disney movie. Oh yes, Mummy and Daddy will get back together now that the evil witch has been exposed, rather than thinking Dad really effed up by believing his mother, who had a track record of hating OP, and he effed up by having me believe the lie. Of course, I effed up too by never wanting to see my mother until now. Both ex and daughter suck for what they let happen to the OP and what they did themselves to OP. If OP's life is happy and content, she shouldn't invite these unkind people back into her life. Back up to the post, we have an edit. I did not expect this post to start blowing up. I appreciate the love and support, however, I didn't make it clear about my daughter's custody. Her opinion mattered in the court since she was 17 during the divorce. Although the divorce was about me allegedly cheating, my ex and I agreed to keep that part from the actual divorcing process, split what we needed to split, and let our daughter choose who she wants to be with. She wanted to live with her dad, and I agreed. She was strongly adamant about not seeing me, so I allowed my ex to have full custody, leaving me with visitations. Not only that, I needed to find an apartment. I had to move out of the house. I was living off couch to couch in my relatives' homes, I didn't have space for her, and my ex mentioned it in court. It was the main reason why she was granted to stay with her father. I was under stress, and I was not mentally well. I signed off my rights. I looked like a mess in court too. There was also a lot more going on during the time. And now onto the update. Hi, within the past 2 days, a lot of stuff came out, and I'm beat. First of all, thank you for the support and the advice. There were so many, but I decided to follow the ones that I thought fit best for me and my daughter. In the last post, I mentioned in the comments about an update. 2 days ago, I texted my daughter to set some boundaries after the ambush attack at the restaurant. As we were talking, she mentioned new information about my ex and why he chose his mother's side over me. Earlier that morning, his mother confessed that she had paid an ex-friend of ours to lie directly in my ex-husband's face, claiming to be my affair partner. Mind you, I never had cheated in the first place. My ex took that as solid evidence and divorced me because of it. His mother is a master manipulator and had him around her finger throughout his childhood, so I'm not surprised why he would take her side. He didn't know that the confession was fake until a few days ago. I wasn't even aware of the entire thing for 4 years. No one had brought it up to me. My daughter gave me the silent treatment. My ex's mother obviously wouldn't tell a thing to me and probably told my ex-husband to keep quiet and to only focus on the divorce. I'm still really saddened, but everything makes sense. I was so mad at him for leaving me over her word, but it was so much more than that. Besides that, I decided to give my daughter another chance. She will not know where I live or any personal information to indicate where I am. I'm keeping low contact on her. I don't want her spreading it to her father or other people. I'll only show up during important events, graduations, weddings, etc. I know my ex-husband will also attend. If that's the case, then so be it. I requested my daughter to put her father on the phone, and he of course apologized so many times and hoped that we could have another chance as well. He said he'd do anything to make it up to me and that he loves me. I said no. I explained that I was keeping him no contact and that I was heartbroken when he didn't communicate to me about the cheating allegations and only assumed. That I was practically homeless for a short time and needed to see a therapist to help move on. That I wanted to be left alone and am currently not interested in another relationship. And then I gave him a new email in case of emergencies directly involving our daughter. Anything else I will discard. That was the only time I spoke to him in the past 2 days. I've been talking to my daughter, setting boundaries and whatnot. She gave small updates about what was going on with her side. They went no contact with my ex's mother, so that's good. I told her never to contact that woman again. She also apologized about her behavior at the restaurant and that it won't happen again. I understand that emotions were running high and everyone was tensed, so I forgave her. I still really love her, and I know that mistakes can happen. Now, a lot of you said to sue my ex's mother. I spoke to my therapist about it earlier today. She said that it wasn't wise to do so. It'll just put more emotional distress on me and that I might have to see her again and may relapse into a depressive state. I really don't want that. I don't want anything to do with that woman again. All I want to do is focus on myself and on my daughter. I want to rebuild our relationship, and it will be ruined if I do something drastic, as in suing my ex's mother. I won't be pressing charges unless something else happens to the point where police are involved. That would be different. Other than that, I'm taking a break. My daughter can text me anytime she wants, but I did say that I may not always reply since I want to remain low contact as of now. Thank you so much for the support and love. I can't express how grateful I am. I'm sorry I haven't replied to any of the comments. There was so much, and it was very overwhelming. This may be my last ever post on this account, unless something happens in the near future. You guys are amazing. Thank you. In the comments, best of luck to you, OP. I currently can't think of a word to describe how obnoxiously terrible what your ex's mum did to you was, followed by what your ex's and daughter did to you after that. Just know that I think that you are amazingly strong. Your ex's mother-in-law's bad karma is coming back around, and hopefully she'll get what she deserves, even without you suing her. I truly hope that you continue to improve your mental health and live happily ever after. OP replies, I originally wasn't going to say anything, but I would now like to mention that my daughter texted me saying she found my original post through TikTok. I have a feeling that she won't be turning against me a second time, lol. She despises her gran-gran. I am very sorry for all that you've been through. You are handling this extremely well and setting boundaries to protect yourself. I just have to say, I wonder how this ex-friend lives with himself knowing he played such a huge role in ending your marriage. OP says, he's a drug addict. I'm 100% sure he took the opportunity to buy more drugs. It was the reason why we dropped him, since he would beg us for money along with other junkie friends that he had. He wasn't even that nice either. He was kind of rude. I honestly hope he's miserable. It's so sad that your ex knows how manipulative his mother is, and how this so-called friend was such an addict that you both dropped him, but he still chose to believe them. I'm glad that you found some peace and middle ground with your daughter. I hope you continue to rebuild your relationship. As for your ex and his mum, they can rot. This is why the ex-husband is not a victim. He could have gotten to the truth if he had spoken with his wife. Weren't they married for a really long time too? Insanity. Good on OP for surviving with grace. I fully support some awful smelling retribution to the evil ex-mother-in-law. And now, onto the daughter's response. My mum posted about her divorce with dad because of his mum. I'm their daughter. My mum recently made 2 posts about our family under the title, My ex divorced me and now he wants to be together again after 4 years. I'm their 21-year-old daughter, and I'm going to explain my side of things. Yes, I have been given permission from my mum to post this. There were a lot of things that she neglected to say on her part. This is how I interpreted what happened on my side, since y'all are quick to blame. 5 years ago when I was 16, my dad called me. He said he was at his mum's house and that I needed to pack my things so he could pick me up. He told me that my mum had cheated on him and now he was going to divorce her. So I did exactly as I was told. I was really mad at mum for doing such a thing. I thought that they were inseparable. I was surprised. I thought they loved each other, and when mum was accused of cheating, I resented her. I yelled at her. I called her really hurtful things that I regret saying. I left to stay with dad. The entire time I refused to talk to mum during the divorce, I really hated her. I truly did. During the time, I was with my dad and grandma. I met her a couple of times, and my mum openly hated on her. I didn't know why. She seemed sweet and supportive, helping my dad get through. She bought me presents and let me live under her roof. She was a stereotypical loving grandma. Mum ended up moving out so we can have the place back. In court, I favored my dad's side and it was approved. I refused to contact my mum. It was like she didn't even try to fight to be with me. I was still really angry at her. Dad was crying on some days. He was really stressed and saddened. She did too, but I thought it was the guilt of being caught and now having nowhere to go and being divorced as a consequence. There was a few times where I wanted to call her, shout at her, hate her, but I didn't. For the next 4 years, it was me, Dad, and Grandma who occasionally visited. She showered me with gifts, always expressing how she finally got to meet her grandbaby. She spoiled me. Dad was still sad for like 3-ish years before meeting another woman, and they started dating. That's when everything turned upside down. Him and Grandma would start getting into fights about the new girlfriend. She would threaten to harm him and call him a pathetic excuse as a son. She knocked stuff over and constantly broke things when she didn't get what she wanted. She even threatened to hurt me sometimes and steal things away from me. Dad hardly ever brought his girlfriend over because of her. Grandma kept visiting almost daily. She was super obsessed over Dad and the new girl. Now repeat that for 5 months straight until she finally snapped. Another fight, and then she confessed. I was in the other room when she screamed about how she did everything to get Mum away from him so she could have him all to herself, and now the new girlfriend is stealing him away. That's when I decided to call Mum to tell her what happened. I was scared. The next day we agreed to meet at a restaurant. I told Dad about it afterwards, and he insisted on coming with me. I wasn't sure at first, but he convinced me to let him come. He was desperate and even broke up with his girlfriend over the phone. So I brought him with. I didn't tell Mum, and when she came and saw us, she was uncomfortable and left after Dad was practically begging on his knees. I ended up calling her a butthole. I was stressed and overwhelmed. I blurted out something that I didn't mean. I get why she left. There was no excuse for my behavior. I started spam calling her and texting her constantly, trying to get a response from her. Some messages weren't nice. I was not thinking properly, Dad was bawling and started saying some depressing thoughts about how he hated himself and that he wished that he was dead. I panicked, like, what am I supposed to do? The next morning, Grandma came to the house while Mum was sending me long-ass paragraphs about wanting to have a relationship again, but needing boundaries. The two were arguing downstairs until Grandma admitted to fabricating the affair confession. She paid someone $500 to tell Dad that his wife was cheating on her with him. So obviously, I texted Mum about it while Dad kicked her out, screaming that he never wanted to see her again and that it was all her fault. For the next day and a half or so, Mum and I communicated with each other. I apologized to her about my recent behavior. It was super uncalled for, and I do really regret saying those things. At one point, I gave my phone to Dad so the two can talk privately with each other. Mum wants to keep low contact, which I agreed to. Dad was upset that she wouldn't take him back. I learned that Mum is seeing a therapist, and I went to see her earlier today. I haven't seen Grandma after Dad kicked her out. He's been saying that she's been trying to call and text him like every hour, and yes, I'm still living with Dad. I'm in community college. It's only a half hour away, so I stay home. I came across Mum's Reddit post on TikTok like 3 times. There are some comments about me that I'm really upset about. Do y'all not understand abuse victims like JFC? I had to put up with my dad's constant depressing behavior and my grandma's gaslighting, love-bombing tactics, etc., and I'm happy to be in contact with my mum. I never contacted her before because my grandma said negative things about her. I thought Mum was the controlling one. She wasn't at all. I regret my choices, and I'm willing to fix them, and she is willing to give me a chance. You don't know our family, so stop acting like you do. In the comments, I'm sorry, but you should have known better than to bring your father near your mother. There is a post about the OP whose brother ruined his life and his marriage because he was obsessed with his wife. He took down OP in front of his now ex-wife, his 4 daughters, and his parents. They never wanted his side of the story. After 6 years, when the brother got everything OP had, including his ex-wife, the truth came out. Unfortunately, the damage has already been done. All OP can do now is rebuild his relationship with his daughters. Not his brother, he is now ostracized, not his parents and the rest of the family. If you want redemption, then stop making yourself out as the victim and be there for your mother. Your father has to live with his misjudgment for the rest of his life, but that is not on you. Give your mother the respect that you never gave. And, now that you know how unhinged your grandmother is, stay away from her. God forbid you settle down and she tries to steal your child away from you. Your grandmother had both her son and you, which is why your mother didn't put up much of a fight. She paid someone to ruin her life, and she succeeded. Grow up and look at the situation for what it is, and remain vigilant, so the same thing doesn't happen to you. I'll be honest, I don't understand how you could hold on to all this hatred for years, and never once think that you should hear what your mum had to say, or that there could be something more to the story. I'm glad you and your mum are working towards reconciliation. This is why I'm trying to raise my kids to be critical thinkers. I have a 16-year-old now, and it's scary to think how easily she could just turn her back on me. I don't understand that. One hallmark of being a teen is black and white thinking. It's harder for teens to see things in shades of grey than for mature adults. I certainly remember thinking a lot of, "I'd never," or "I'll always be sure to," as a teen. Lol, Tink proposes, God disposes. Add to that the apparent certainty of said cheating after all. It's awfully rare for an affair partner confessing to actually being a paid actor. Good gravy, her dad's utter heartbreak and the influence of her manipulative grandmother, and it's not that surprising. I bet the thought of contacting her mother would actually start to feel disloyal. After all, her grandmother is eyeball deep in emotional incest and a totally messed up view of the world. So it would be her instinct to subtly promote a similar view in her granddaughter that contacting her mother would be cheating on her dad all over again. I really feel for OP and her mum and dad. Am I the a-hole for admitting to my son that I never wanted to have a child? So, I saw a post here that reminded me of my situation, and it made me think to post. I have a 15-year-old son, Jacob. When I was 18, I married a classmate that I was dating. We were stupid teenagers, and I got pregnant. He really wanted to have a kid, so I was pressured into having Jacob, even though I hated being pregnant and taking care of him. Our family was so disappointed that they demanded that we give the baby up to somebody so that we can focus on our education. We didn't, and Jacob was about 6 months old when his dad died in a motorcycle crash. About a year after, I gave Jacob up to my great aunt. She legally adopted him, and my life got so much better. I finished up my education, and by the time I was 26, I became the manager at a club. When Jacob was 11, my great aunt got diagnosed with an illness, and it was determined that she could no longer care for him. So, as per her wishes, I took Jacob back and began working nights so that I could care for him, even though I hate working nights. I have changed my entire schedule to accommodate for him. I never wanted to take somebody to basketball practice, drop off and pick up a bunch of kids in a carpool, or have noisy Xbox games played throughout my apartment. But I do now, and I have sacrificed my entire existence for him. And here's the kicker. I actually started to enjoy it because Jacob was so great, and up until a year ago, I was even thinking that this was a nice way to live. And then something changed. He got rude. Starts throwing his backpack when he comes home, will throw away the lunch that I make him, will swear, and he won't even hug me anymore. We had an argument yesterday because he started watching WWE real loud instead of doing his chores, and that woke me up way too early, and I got very upset when he said that I wanted to give him away because I don't. I admitted that I never wanted to have him, but he's not some toy that I can just toss away. But instead of thinking about what I said, he just started crying really badly, and this morning he wouldn't even get out of bed and go to school. He just won't stop hugging me and crying. I've called in sick for work tonight, but I'm just wondering if I was wrong to handle it how I did. One of my friends said that she would have divorced her husband if he said that to her son. Yeah, for me personally, this sounds really abusive. I don't understand why you said this to him. That's not nice. That's a really bad thing to say to someone. It's abusive. I don't see any way that that isn't abusive towards your own son. Son exhibits behaviors that teenagers normally exhibit, and you say, you know what? I never wanted you. I wish you never existed, but now that I have you, I can't get rid of you. Ouch. That would really make me feel wanted if I was the son in this position. I don't blame him for hugging you and crying you all the time, but I'm surprised that he's actually hugging you. I'm surprised he's not turned off by the mere sight of you currently. I'm going with definitely you're the a-hole for this one. Now in the comments, you're the a-hole. You never ever tell your kid that you never wanted them. Your son will not ever forget this. He was already abandoned by you once, now he knows that he is one normal teenage tantrum away from you shoving him out on the streets. He was hugging you and crying because he thinks that if he doesn't, you'll just throw him away like trash. Don't expect him to stick around much longer after he turns 18. And edit to everyone replying with how old they were when their parents said this to them, I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve that. No child does. I can only wish the best for you and hope that you don't have to be in any more relationships where the other parties treat you as forced burdens. All of this times a million. I wish I could grab that boy and pour all of the love that he's been missing into him. Same. Halfway through reading this, I was like, I'm going to comment and tell OP that she better effing let me adopt this kid and I'll take care of him. I never even wanted kids, but I know for a fact that I would take great care of him just like I take amazing care of my boyfriend's kids. This is insane that she would treat her kid this way and blame him when these are all consequences of her own actions. Not to mention he lost his dad and his aunt, who was like a mother figure to him. OP, you are heartless for this, and I hope this was a huge wake-up call for you. Never do this to your son again, please get him therapy, and you should also take family therapy together. Damn, you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. You said something life-changingly hurtful to a child. I was just talking to a 50-year-old today who was bawling her eyes out, recalling being told those very words by her own mother when she was 15. Your son will never forget what you said. Now go get him a good therapist and get yourself one too, and try to undo the damage that you've done. I'm in my 40s. My mom yelled at me that she should have let my grandparents on a different continent adopt me when they offered. I was about 8, maybe 7 years old. I hadn't cleaned up my toys to her liking. I remember that like it was yesterday. It still hurts. I dated a girl that got into a heated argument one night, and her mom said that she always wished she had a son. Not, I didn't want a kid level of screwed up, but close enough. It screwed her up pretty bad for a long time. And now, on to the update. The stuff you were saying about me and about losing my custody of my son is not funny. I can accept where I went wrong. I made a simple mistake while attempting to do something good. I love my son, and I am not who I am as a teenager. I am not somebody who would give him away. I want him to stay with me. One thing that I didn't put in my post was that I'm planning on moving us to an apartment closer to our city's top university because I know that a boy as smart as him will be able to go there. My son is a wonderful child, and I love him. As for everyone asking me whether or not I apologized, of course I apologized. What I said made my son cry so bad he wouldn't stop hugging me and wouldn't go to school. I'm not made of stone, and I'm not an abuser, even though that's what so many of you tried to paint me as. For the people who did offer helpful suggestions because you are good people, instead of those trying to get some kind of moral high ground because you live online and contribute nothing to the world, I thank you all so much. I had a conversation with my son yesterday when I got him to come out for dinner about things. I made it clear to him that I did not envision the last 4 years of my life, but they have been the greatest. To have him call me mum and hear him talk and have fun and get to give him hugs and kisses and make him food makes my life amazing. That's why even though he's been so different this last year, I am never sending him away. I explained that what I meant by the toy simile was that I didn't want him to think that I saw him like that because I'm not who I was when I gave birth to him. I'm not the stupid teenager who let him be adopted by a rich aunt. We both hugged, and he forgave me and told me that he knows that I love him, but what I said made him scared. We did then talk about what's been going on the last year, and I don't feel like I can write it here, at least not now, but he was finally honest with me. He cried in my arms, and I understand now that bad things were on the cusp of happening, but now they won't. Because of what was going on, I have made it clear to him that we will explore options for getting professional help, but it doesn't mean what my great aunt told him it means. So to sum it up, thank you and don't be malicious. In the comments, honestly, OP did better by giving him to his aunt. Growing up with a mother in a similar situation as OP, she would have grown to resent him and he would have known. Goodness knows that it made me very combative and suicidal as a teenager. That said, those words are gonna stay with him and they both need family therapy. Maybe going with her rather than alone will reassure him of his safety, though after this, it's hard to tell. I really hope that kid has a support system outside of his mum, or his issues will have issues. I agree. OP made a pretty selfless decision that can't have been easy when she was so young, barely grown. She was clumsy in expressing her feelings to her son later on, but not out of malice. I understand what she was saying, but I also understand how that could have hurt her son badly. I hope they can both heal from this. TBH, most of the time what makes you a butthole isn't the mistake, it's how you handle the ripples that come from it. OP meant well, but she hurt her son. She didn't want that, didn't mean it, and wanted to fix it. That's the exact opposite of a butthole. My mum was 19 when she had my brother, and 35 when she had me. We had two very different childhoods. She always wanted to be a parent, so giving us up would have been her very last resort, but I don't doubt that she would have done it if it meant that we would be safer that way. It is an indescribably painful thing to realize. You can't raise your own child the way you want to. It's emotionally difficult, but also the circumstances have to be so bad for it to get there. Being an actively suicidal teen widow is definitely one of those circumstances. Almost exactly my situation. I was 16 when my little sister was born, and while sometimes I find myself bitter watching her get the childhood that I didn't, never at her, more in general, I'm really grateful that I get to give my mum real-time advice about what screwed me up, and it's cathartic watching her grow into a better parent for my little tuna fish. She pierced my ears when I was less than a year old, and I was so resentful of it until I was like 12 to 14, when I finally came around to liking them and convinced my mum to let Tuna decide for herself. No more spankings, excessive yelling, yada yada, but she still needs to lay off the spoiling with toys. Our next post is titled, Am I the a-hole for prioritizing my son's dog over my wife's pregnancy? When my son, 14, was 8, we got a dog. He's half Great Dane and half some dog my friend's dog met during an unauthorized absence. My son loves this dog and does all the care for him, except vet stuff, and is a very irresponsible dog owner. This dog is pretty much his best friend. My wife is 12 weeks pregnant, and ever since we confirmed the pregnancy, she's been acting weird around the dog. She avoids him, puts her hands over her stomach when he's around, and jolts whenever he makes a noise. Today, she told me that she wants to rehome the dog. I asked her what she was talking about, and she said that she's been having anxiety that he will jump on her. This is completely unreasonable. He doesn't jump on people. We trained him not to jump on people or run into people very young because he is half Great Dane, and I felt that this was important for all dogs, but especially one who could possibly grow to such a large size, which he did. There is no reason for her to think that the dog will jump on her. She said that there is no way to know for sure that the dog won't jump on her, and if he does, our baby could be hurt. This dog has never so much as growled at her. She said even if the dog doesn't jump on her, her anxiety about it is bad for her health. She said she needs the dog elsewhere for her safety and for the babies. I told her that there was no way. My son got this dog right after he lost his mum and imprinted on him hard. Sometimes I think he loves the dog more than me. I am not taking his dog. The dog didn't do anything. My wife said that I'm prioritizing the dog over her pregnancy. The dog isn't a threat to her pregnancy. If this were any other unreasonable request, I would just do it because she's pregnant. I just can't break my son's heart over a fear she has that makes no sense. Am I being a butthole? In the comments, not the a-hole. Has she stopped driving? Has she started using a wheelchair so she doesn't fall? Is she refusing to use stairs? She needs some counseling, genuinely, not being rude, to figure out why she is only fixated on the dog and reacting to sound similar to PTSD symptoms. Did you train the dog not to jump because he pushed her over at some point? Was she pushed by a dog as a child or something? Something got in her head. Or she has always hated the dog and is manipulating you now that she sees her chance to get rid of it. OP replies, We trained the dog when he was a puppy before I even met my wife. Then she has some mental hang-up/trauma, or she's manipulating you. You know her better than us, but those are the likely things based on given info. No, the likely thing based on the information is that she is hyper-anxious due to the pregnancy and is fixating on the dog. They shouldn't rehome the dog, but there should be help for her. Mild anti-anxiety drugs or therapy, even meditation or yoga would help. As a woman who has been pregnant, I agree with this. We naturally become very protective of our bodies and hyper-aware of anything that we may perceive as a threat to our security. I doubt drugs are an option because she's pregnant, but maybe talking to someone or helping her limit time with a dog may help. I would microchip the dog if you haven't already. Make sure info is up to date and see if she will seek counseling and compromise. Your kid needs his dog, not the a-hole. OP, you really need to pay attention to this. Your wife is having irrational anxiety, whether because of hormones, and she needs to talk to her doctor, or because she's always wanted to get rid of the dog and this is her excuse. Only time will tell, but irrational people do crazy stuff, and it would be very, very easy for her to get rid of the dog while you and your son aren't there. Not the a-hole, as long as you watch your wife very carefully to make sure she doesn't harm your son's dog or any other target of her paranoia. Antenatal anxiety is a thing that can happen, and you're right. She needs to talk to a professional for help. I don't think she's reached nefariously get rid of the dog levels yet, but it's better to help her not reach that point in the first place. Not the a-hole. Animals are lifetime responsibilities. Pawning them off because she got pregnant would be a crappy thing to do. I wish more people agreed with this. Yeah, I was sweating coming into the comments. Cats and dogs are highly emotionally complex, have a sense of self, complex social and familial structures, form languages with their owners, have some capacity for narrative and episodic memory. They can absolutely conceive of and suffer from family rejection. Rehoming a dog is the last of all possible resorts. And now, onto the update. We read some stuff about pregnant women developing sudden fear and hatred towards pets, and how common this phenomena is. Several people shared their personal stories on my original post, but I couldn't show her those because I didn't tell her about the original post. There were too many people saying mean things on it, but I found similar stories elsewhere online, and she found them reassuring. We've been training the dog on how to be around babies. Well, my son is training him. So far, a former co-worker of mine and a neighbor have let me borrow their babies for an evening, and both times went really well. So we will continue to enforce appropriate baby behavior with the dog. My wife visited her OBGYN to discuss her fear and anxiety, and she again was reassured that many women face similar experiences when pregnant. She's going to start seeing someone to discuss her changing emotional state. She also decided that she wants to spend as little time as possible with the dog for now. So we've all been accommodating that, and the dog is now spending the majority of his indoor time in my son's room instead of in the living room when my wife is home. So far the dog doesn't mind, as he sleeps in there anyway, and that's where his best friend lives. Our home continues to be harmonious. I appreciate all the people who provided productive information and outlooks on the last post. And now in the comments, saw your first post, glad you guys are figuring it out and the doggo stays. Also, lol, a co-worker and a neighbor let you borrow their baby? And OP says, they were really excited about the free babysitting, a level of excitement that, to be honest, made me nervous. I lolled hard at this. I totally understand loving free babysitting, though I would be nervous leaving it with someone that I'm not too close with. I'm sure you probably are. OP says, I just have one of those faces. People feel safe around me. I only use my powers for good. Like, testing with their baby to train your behemoth mutt to be safe around your own later? OP says, we don't just put the baby in front of the dog and peace out. My son holds the baby and puts treats in their hands to give the dog while giving the dog commands. After the dog follows the commands, the baby, actually my son, gives the dog a treat. So the dog learns that babies are humans, authority figures, and need to be treated respectfully, and not puppies or some strange interloper animal that can be played roughly with. The dog also gets used to the sounds that babies make, so he won't find them upsetting or stressful later on. This is so wonderful. It's clear that you're also doing the research into the best way to teach your dog. I'm sure sharing this info about what is being done and why will help your wife in the long run too. Is this what a functional family dynamic looks like? I think I got whiplash from some of the posts that I read earlier today. Am I the a-hole for skipping my stepdaughter's wedding? I, 50 female, have 2 stepchildren, Sarah, 23 female, and Mike, 28 male. I have been in their lives since Sarah was 2. Sarah's mum, Kate, was a drug addict, and when Sarah was 3, she lost all her parental rights because of her addiction. Kate left after that and didn't have any contact until Sarah was 17. That's when Kate reached out to us saying that she was clean and wanted a relationship with the kids. My husband Rob was against this, but I wanted to give her a chance. We met with her, and it turns out that she had been clean for a while, was going to therapy, and had a decent job. Mike was against meeting her, and to this day insists I'm his only mom and that Kate is dead to him. Sarah was more open to Kate and resented Mike for rejecting her. I explained that Mike was older and witnessed Kate at her worst, so he has a different relationship with her, while Sarah only remembers her after getting clean. This issue still caused a lot of resentment between them and me. Kate blamed me for Mike being hostile and resented me. It didn't help that Sarah started rejecting me for Kate. She stopped spending time with me no matter what I did and stopped calling me mum. I told her how hurt I was, how she didn't have to choose, she could have us both. I never had an issue with Sarah and Kate, I only had an issue with being rejected. Sarah told me that while she appreciated me at the end of the day, Kate was her and Mike's real mum. This crushed me. The final straw was when she didn't invite me to her high school graduation. I told her if she didn't want to be my daughter, then fine. From then on, she would be my husband's kid. Mike has no contact with her as well. 3 months ago, she came over with her fiancé, who we didn't even know existed, to invite us to their wedding. She said she wanted me at the bridal party, but I refused. I told her that we hadn't had a relationship in years because of her wishes, and it felt uncomfortable for me to take on that role when I barely knew her now. She said she was sorry. I told her I wasn't interested. She got angry and said that I had to be there because, and I quote, "What are people going to think when both my brother and my dad's wife aren't there? Gramps, paternal grandfather, is going to get pissed off too." I told her that she clearly didn't want me there and only cared about appearances and being on her Gramps' good side as he's rich. I am not coming, nor am I having a relationship with her. She started crying and begging for forgiveness, but it felt like crocodile tears to me. After she left, she kept texting me trying to get me to change my mind. On the day of the wedding, she texted that she was going to leave an empty seat for me and that I was welcome any time if I changed my mind, but I still did not go. Rob is mad at me, saying I ruined his daughter's wedding and made her cry, that all she wanted was me there and this was a chance to fix our family. Mike, who has also no contact with her, is on my side. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. I think I might be the a-hole for not giving her a chance, but at the same time, I'm not sure what kind of relationship we can even have, nor am I sure if she was even genuine or not. In the comments, not the a-hole. She dropped you quickly enough for her real mum. You know, the one that did literally nothing for the hardest part of her life and then strolled in when it was convenient. She threw away 15 plus years of care like it was nothing. You can't reverse that at a drop of a hat to a full seat at a wedding. Husband is the a-hole for not seeing that she kicked you to the curb without a thought and expects you to be okay with it, although I can see that he is in a difficult position. OP replies, he is in a difficult position. Both of his kids are not talking to each other, and he was also started to be rejected by Sarah in favor of her stepdad. With Kate and her husband, she has it easier since there is no resentment there, but with her dad, she also has to face me and her brother. So it's easier for her to spend more time with her mum's side of the family. That is all very difficult, and I'm sorry for the position that you're all in. I'm surprised, though, that she can't see the position of her brother and her dad. She would be too young to remember her bio mom at her worst, but the others obviously can. It's great she can forgive and move on, but that doesn't remove the past and doesn't change how much you personally have done by stepping up to be her mother. OP replies, I tried to explain to her that Mike simply has a different relationship, but she doesn't accept that. Sorry to say, but she sounds quite self-centered. Hopefully she'll come around, but it's going to have to start with her offering a massive apology to all of you, and to you in particular. Not the a-hole. Once again, a wedding is not the place to fix families. She had years to do this, but it's only come up now because she wants to look good in front of relatives. You were not wrong to reject the invitation. It was given with an ulterior motive that was nothing to do with fixing anything. Not the a-hole. You were the one to give the first push in getting Rob to allow Kate to see them. Sarah basically slapped you in the face for everything you did. You even told Sarah that you were fine with being just a motherly figure, but she took it further by resenting you? Rob has some audacity to say that you ruined the wedding when you were the one who helped bring up these children, then not get any support, while you were blamed for Mike's choices and rejected. Did Kate go to Sarah's wedding? OP replies, she and her entire family were invited, and she was also in the bridal party as maid of honor. And now, on to the update. So I would like to clarify a few things. Sarah's relationship with Mike is no contact because she couldn't accept his decision to cut Kate off. At first, Mike didn't support Sarah and Kate, but I sat them both down. I told them that both of them have very different relationships with Kate. Mike remembers Kate as an addict, while Sarah only remembers clean Kate, and both of them are entitled to their view of Kate. Mike accepted this and was okay with Sarah and Kate, but Sarah couldn't accept it. She couldn't reconcile addict Kate with clean Kate, so she refused to believe Mike and downplayed a lot of this trauma. Sarah said things like, "It wasn't that bad. It was not her fault. She was sick. She gave you life. You owe her," etc. And by the time Sarah was 19, their relationship became and is no contact. Kate also couldn't accept this and blamed me for Mike not wanting to talk to her. Regarding the wedding, Sarah reached out to me 3 months before the wedding, even though they had been engaged for a year, saying that they wanted to come over. We said yes, and she came with her fiancé, who we didn't even know existed. Apparently, they had been together for 3 years. When I say she apologized, I meant she said, "I'm sorry you feel that way," which to her was an apology, but to me it's not. She also referred to me as Dad's wife, as in, what would people say if my dad's wife isn't there? Not even stepmom, Dad's wife. She also mentioned her paternal grandfather a lot and how angry he would be. In the 2 months leading up to the wedding, she texted me to change my mind, but all she talked about was, "The wedding will be ruined, Grandpa will be mad," etc. Once the wedding happened, she blocked me everywhere. I found out today that her fiancé blocked me too, even though I don't follow him. I only messaged him on Instagram because he has a public profile, but I have been blocked. Same thing with Facebook, even though we aren't friends on there. She clearly wasn't genuine in her attempts to reconcile, and even if she was, it doesn't mean that I'm obligated to respond. She was 18 when she stopped calling me mum, 19 when she went no contact with Mike, and doubled down on her decision. A decision she has held on to for 6 years total. She made her choice. Just because she's young doesn't make her entitled to forgiveness or a relationship with me. And in the comments, the last paragraph was the exclamation point to this whole mess. I stand on the fact that she only wanted you there for appearances. She sounds young, entitled, and grossly immature. Good on you. Hold the line and stand your ground. Hopefully this does not cause issues in your marriage moving forward. She's old enough to know what she's doing and to be held responsible for her choices and actions. You respected her wishes and decisions. If she really wanted to make amends and apologize, she would or could have, but it's obvious she's turning into a not so nice and genuine person. In my opinion, you've done more than enough. You don't need to drag yourself through all the drama anymore. You're just Dad's wife, right? What could she want from you? OP was right not to go. Her husband telling OP that she ruined the wedding needs to rethink who raised his kids and where he went wrong as the dad. OP never kept bio-mum from her and raised her for 15 years. Sarah goes no contact and bio-mum is the best. But you need to show up so Pop isn't pissed at the bride so she can stay in the will. Someone cuts you out of their life for 6 years and expects you to play nice for grandparents' money can just F off. OP and Mike at least see the truth that Sarah is a brat. Our next post is titled, "I am legally the father of a child who isn't mine, and the mother just passed away. I got married when I was 18 to a woman. We decided to split up a little over 2 years later because I realized I was gay. I moved to California, and she moved around as well, but apparently settled in North Carolina. No, I don't have some compelling reason to why we didn't file for divorce or even a formal separation. It just never seemed like a priority, and over the years was easy to forget. We weren't exactly calling each other all the time or ever. In fact, I haven't spoken to her since the day that I moved to California over 17 years ago. In that time, she had a child who is now 14 years old. My spouse recently passed away. I didn't think about this at the time, but since I was still married to her, I am legally the father of her child. I'm on the birth certificate, as was required by law at the time. Now there is the issue of the fact that I'm now the surviving spouse, but more urgently, the sole legal parent of what is emotionally and biologically a random teenager. The estate is an issue too, but less so than an entire person. One of her mother's friends is willing to take in the child, but she's afraid that if I contest paternity, she wouldn't be approved by social services as a foster parent, and the child would have to face foster care, so she wants me to just give her temporary guardianship to run out the clock. I don't know anything about how any of that or contesting paternity would work. I know that foster care isn't exactly good for older kids, and I don't want to ruin this kid's life if there is another option. But more informal arrangements don't seem like a good idea either. I don't want some random kid living with me, nor do I think that she would want that either. What do I do? Edit. Of course, her child is the proper sole heir/inheritor of her mother's estate, and I will fix that as well when it is possible. And edit 2, we do not know who the bio father is, and he is not involved. In the comments, not a lawyer. Who's caring for the child right now? Technically, you're responsible for providing food, clothing, and shelter. Are you sure that she's getting that? If she's not, it'll be on you that you are not providing it, and that is definitely a way to get the state involved, which it sounds like you do not want. What about health insurance? Again, if you do not want the state involved, that would have to be addressed. How well do you know the person that you would be giving guardianship to? Can the person be completely trusted? If she does become legal guardian, she will have control over assets the child receives after the will goes through probate. She would also have control over the assets the child would receive from your estate if you were to pass away. People sometimes get strange when it comes to money. OP says, I don't really know this person. She was at the hospital, and the kid obviously trusted her enough to vouch for her there and request to go home with her. The friend knew of me enough to give them my contact info and tell them who I was. Quote, who is caring for the child right now? She is staying at her mother's house with the friend right now. Not sure of the exact situation though. I will ask that today. Healthcare. I haven't considered that one. I could add her to mine. Does that work in different states? And can the person be completely trusted? To my understanding, I'm already joint co-owner of most of the assets. I'll have to wait to see how it fully shakes out, but I should be able to just sit on it for 4 years to make sure the kid actually gets everything. I'm starting to think that I should talk to the kid directly to see what they think. I've been trying to avoid that because it seemed really creepy, but it's probably not avoidable. Guardianship should probably be acceptable rather than adoption, but you guys really need to talk to a family lawyer in order to find out all the rights that need to be assigned and what, if any, responsibility you would still have as the quote-unquote father in a guardianship situation. Adoption mostly benefits you by completely ending your legal involvement, but does not sound like it would be good for the child. You say the friend has a controversial career. Does she have a criminal history? If she has enough of a criminal background, the court might refuse to grant her guardianship. In general, though, if you, as the current holder of the legal rights, approve of her, that can fast-track the guardianship assignment and allow her to skip some of the more detailed examination where the court might complain about whatever she's up to. She needs to talk to a family lawyer and figure out what is involved in applying for guardianship. As best as I understand it, she will need to fill out an application with the court, and then a hearing will be scheduled to go over the situation. I have no idea if you would need to show up for that, or if you could issue a sworn statement, but I think being present would help. If it seems pretty straightforward to the court that you've got everything settled, they would probably rather just sign it over and not have to spend any more time and money investigating the situation where they are not wanted. OP says, "We have an appointment with a lawyer there on Monday to ask these questions and have more than a cursory review." You keep saying we, so I assume you're talking about yourself and the friend. The issue is you don't really know the intentions of this friend, and the lawyer can't represent both of your interests in a situation that could potentially be adversarial. You really need your own attorney that is looking out for your interests first. There are other liabilities here to consider as well. If you are now the co-owner of the property, you are responsible and liable for what happens there, just like any other property that you might own. You'll need insurance and a proper rental agreement if you are going to allow the friend to live there to take care of the child. That's just the first thing I thought of, but there are certainly others. That is why you need your own attorney. And OP says, "That's definitely giving me a lot to think about. I was really hoping I could just work with the friend. It seems really presumptuous to just sidestep the only adult that I know this child knows and act like I alone know best despite knowing nothing and being a total stranger. Just one with paperwork that backs me." Well, don't look at it as sidestepping. Making sure your ducks are in a row is not a slight to this friend. It's making sure things are done correctly for everybody involved. And now onto the update. It's been an eventful few months, but things have settled down now for the most part. Things have happened. It's nothing super exciting or dramatic, but here's the news. I've met the mother's friend and the daughter. We talked it over in exhausting detail and went over absolutely everything that we and our lawyers, as she also engaged with one as well, could think of. We decided that it was best that I stay as the legal father. The mother's friend was adamant that she only wanted power of attorney and nothing more, which the lawyers approved. SSI is put in a shared account that only I and the child are joint on. She has access to the bank card. The child is enrolled in school, and I was able to get her on my insurance, even though it's going to be more expensive due to her seeing doctors out of state, technically. The condo has been sold, and that money has been added to her 529, which we hope will cover her for college. I've been working with my lawyer and a financial advisor on how to handle the finances, and we have a game plan for how to save as much of the estate for the child as possible, which mostly means that her mother's personal funds are in various savings accounts that I'll transfer to her when she is 21 or she graduates college. On a personal level, though, we've obviously exchanged numbers and stay in contact. The mother's friend is insisting on legal distance for herself due to some personal things that she doesn't want to affect the child. It is a weird situation, but the child feels safe with her, and I would also judge it as safe. We are not planning on her coming to live with me or any kind of instant father thing, but she's coming to visit for Christmas and may visit for some of the summer if that goes well. In the comments, "This could have gone wrong 100 different ways, but it didn't. The child has experienced the loss of her mother, but it seems like she's in good hands. I commend OP, as it seems he wants to make sure the child is set up for success. I also think that it's really nice that she's going to visit for summer and holidays. She must trust him and feel a connection, and he probably does too. I wish them all well." It's really sweet that the guy realizes despite him having no connection to this kid except legal paperwork, he is being friendly and compassionate about the kid's situation. Older kids in foster care do suffer. They're often used for free labor work, especially on farms. Or, much worse, with the only escape being thrown back into the system, then rolling the dice again till you age out. Yep, I worked with street kids for a while, and they were just trying to stay out of the system because it had been nothing but bad experiences. I really hate that North Carolina does this. My parents were mid-divorce when my mum had a baby. The state tried to go after my dad for child support. It was easy to disprove since they hadn't been in the same state together for years, but it was a hassle. I imagine if my dad couldn't afford a lawyer, he would have been in a bad place. It is so bizarre that the state would automatically put someone not biologically related to a child as a parent on their birth certificate without that person's consent. It's coming from the logic that a child should have all legally connected persons be financially responsible for it in order to keep as many people as possible off state welfare. So that leads to people who aren't the parents of that child but have something like a paper-only marriage being obligated to provide. I'm going to leave my fiancé for my boyfriend. 6 months ago, my, female 25, fiancé, male 28, asked if I would be willing to have an open relationship. I agreed. Everything was okay until like 3 months ago when he asked if he could switch from open to poly. I agreed again. He started dating a girl from work, and I started dating a guy from my gym. Now, this guy, male 26, is so different than my fiancé. He takes me on dates every week. He brings me flowers and food at work. He texts me just to say hi. He's sweet and affectionate. My fiancé, however, we've been together for 4 years. He only gets me flowers for my birthday. He's never affectionate. His idea of a date is playing board games or watching The Witcher. They are very different in bed too. With my fiancé, most of the times sex is a chore. He is fast and rough, and then he goes to watch TV. My boyfriend, however, is very tender. He takes his time and checks if I'm enjoying it, he cuddles with me after, and he brings me snacks. I was talking to my mum about this, and she asked me which one makes me happier, and I guess it clicked. I like the way that my boyfriend treats me, while my fiancé is more of a roommate at this point. After my talk with my mum, I decided to talk to my fiancé as well. I just told him that I wish he would be more affectionate with me. He just shrugged and said that he isn't into chick flick. So I guess I'm gonna break up with my fiancé because I don't want to marry a man that never takes me out or buys me flowers or holds my hand. Sing it. I want someone that shows their emotions. I don't know if me and my boyfriend are going to work out since it's still new, but at least now I know that I have options. I grew up around men that were emotionally unavailable, relatable, and most women in my family constantly told me that men are not affectionate, so I guess I kinda believed it. My first 2 boyfriends were like this as well. They didn't like showing affection, and my fiancé is the 3rd guy that I've ever been with. It feels good to know that not all men are like my mum made me think they were. I'm on my way to have dinner with my fiancé, and I'm going to call off the engagement. I would read the comments, but they seem to all be from after the updates. So, now on to the update. I was super nervous to have this talk with my fiancé, but apparently at dinner it wasn't just us. He invited his parents and didn't tell me. I wanted to have the conversation with him privately, but his mum started talking about the wedding. Cringe. She had a bunch of flower arrangements, dresses, and venues printed out, and she was going to buy a dress tomorrow. I got overwhelmed and ended up telling them that the wedding is off. I tried to be as gentle as I could, but my fiancé freaked out when I gave my reasons, that I don't feel loved, and that I want someone that shows their affection, and made a scene, so we were kicked out. He left to go home like 10 minutes ago. I'm still in the parking lot with his parents. They are trying to call him. I'm going to drive them home, and then I guess I have to get ready for round 2 when I get home. Update 2. We had a huge fight, and he confessed he only wanted to open the relationship because he wanted to sleep with his coworker without being a cheater, and then wanted a poly relationship because he developed feelings for her. Alright, that's my bingo. And he called me a cow for dumping him because I'm a big baby who needs attention. Apparently I need to grow up because real men don't get emotional. Update 3. My now ex-fiancé called and begged me to come home to talk because he's sorry and he didn't mean what he said. Blech. And because real men don't get emotional, he started crying when I'd said no and that he can call his girlfriend if he wants to talk to someone. Update 4. I talked with my boyfriend, and we're going to close the relationship. He was thinking about it for a while, but was afraid to ask, so he was happy when I suggested it. My boyfriend helped me move all of my things out of the apartment that I shared with my ex. My ex has called and texted me all night, and I blocked him because honestly, it kinda scared me. Ex's girlfriend came to see me at work. She was worried that I ended things because of her, and we talked for a bit, and I assured her that it wasn't because of her. We also talked about my ex and his lack of showing emotions, and she's now reconsidering their relationship because she also wants someone who shows their love, and she was thinking that he didn't because it was still new, and she thought that in time he'd get more comfortable. But after we talked, she wasn't so sure anymore. A lot of people keep saying that my boyfriend will turn into my ex. Why? Why do you think that? Do you have magical powers to see the future? And if he does, so what? I should stay in a relationship where I don't feel loved just because my next relationship will not work? Like I said in my post and in the comments, even if it doesn't work, at least now I know I have options. I also had a few people asking if my ex was always like this or if he changed. No, he was always like this. Now in the comments, relating back to the bingo card one, this little section here, he confessed he only wanted to open the relationship because he wanted to sleep with his coworker without being a cheater, and then wanted a poly relationship because he developed feelings for her. And now he wants her back because his coworker also said something to break it up. The ex then also tried to convince his girlfriend that she was the issue, not him. Dude's toxic AF. Are you winning, son? Every time the person who suggests opening up the relationship is like this, and every time it winds up like this. Do they not read it? My ex-husband opened the relationship up, but it was more like swinging. I was so lost in all of it that I'm just now realizing what happened to me, and how horrible of a person he actually was. Reddit has been a big help. You need to grow up because real men don't get emotional? Says the guy losing his crap in a restaurant. A grown man having a big enough tantrum in a restaurant to get his whole party kicked out, then turning around and saying men aren't emotional. He's definitely not a self-aware wolf. She's growing up. That's why she decided to end things. She's learning how it feels to be valued and respected. Proud of OP. I hope she permanently raised the bar for acceptable treatment. Can't get much lower than leaving one's parents with the ex who just dumped you. Graceful he is not. Our next post is titled, My mum bragged about how she kept my dad out of my life. I grew hating him thinking he abandoned me. I, 19 female, grew up with a single mum. Growing up, I was always told that my father abandoned me. It happened when I was around 10 when I asked my mum about my dad, and she told me straight that he abandoned me. I cried so much that day, it's not a joke. As I grew older, I hated him even though I never met him. I thought about if he came back, I would scream at him and ruin him and attack him for leaving. Last week, my mum and I were at her friend's house, and I went along because I'm friends with her friend's daughter. Well, fast forward, I came downstairs and heard my mum say my name. She revealed my dad's name and said, It's easy to keep a father out of a kid's life like what I did with Lena's, me, father, after I found out he cheated on me. She was also talking about how pathetic he looked when he pleaded with her to stay in my life. She also added how she used his old drug addiction against him in court. From how I understand, he was sober before I was born. Oh my god. I made contact with my bio dad as soon as we got home. The next morning, I got a reply and he asked for my number so that we can talk. The first thing my dad did when he called was apologize. He told me that it's all his fault. After talking with him for a while, I told him that I'd love to have a relationship with him. He lives not far from our city, only a 2-hour drive. As for my mum, she's at work. I sent her a text telling her about what I heard, and I'll be cutting off contact with her for a while, and probably forever. Edit, so I did not mention this in a comment about the house. I inherited my uncle's house after he died, and that is when my mum started acting weird. She believed that the house belonged to her and fought with my grandfather over it, but he put his foot down and told her that it's my house. Secondly, when I turned 18 and moved into the house, my mum came along. I didn't want to live with her again, but she told me that she'll cut off my college fund. Well, now my grandpa told me that he'll pay for my college. Also, more about my mum. When my parents split up, my grandfather told me that he doesn't support her decision to keep my father out of my life, but she told him that he will never see either. Also, my mum acts like my house belongs to her and always tells me, technically it's my house and should have been given to me. Edit 2. Another thing, my father quit drugs long before he met her. My dad confessed to this. On top of this, I was told by my grandpa not long after telling my mum that she's no longer welcome in my house, that my dad actually loved me with all of his heart when I was only a couple of months old. Apparently my dad also made it impossible for others to hold me. The next thing is that my dad did confess to cheating. I already asked my mum to explain her side, and she said yes, he did quit drugs long before he met her. However, that's about it. So far, all she wants is for me to forgive her. I did ask my dad for his side, and he hasn't replied yet, but he told me that he'll call me later. In the comments, Opie, I know Reddit is quick to say lawyer up, but this is a situation where one would be a good idea. You need to make sure that you protect your assets, as well as make sure that your mum hasn't been trying to pull shady stuff without your knowledge and consent. For example, either forging your signature or getting you to sign something under the guise of it being something else. Her saying, technically it's my house, when legally it isn't, who knows what other boundaries she's pushing. I would definitely get legal advice. That is an awful thing to do to your kids. I'm glad you made contact with your dad. It is never too late to work on your relationship with him. If my husband and I ever got divorced, I wouldn't keep him from the kids. That would punish my kids who are innocent. I don't get women like this. As a mother, I put my kids first always and do what is best for them. My ex and I now live far enough apart that a plane ride is necessary for us to get our child back and forth. There have been times, however, that he has flown down here for special events regarding our child. He either sleeps on my couch or in my child's room. He will hang out with us while my husband and I cook dinner, and often does all the cleanup after. He has even told my husband and I to go out on dates while he stays home with all of the kids. Our divorce wasn't easy at first, but we make it work for our kid. Unless their father was an active drug addict and/or wanted for horrific crimes, there is no reason to keep a willing father out of a child's life. It feels like she felt abandoned from your dad and wanted to ruin his life every way that she could think of. You were also a way to hurt your bio dad. Crappy thing to do since she told you that he abandoned you instead of him cheating on her. That is really terrible what she did. A child is a human being, not a pawn in a marriage. And now on to the update. First of all, thanks so much for the support. I'm surprised my post got so much support, and I cannot thank you enough, but anyway. So, I met up with my dad at a restaurant today. He thought that it would be better to talk in person. I was shocked when I saw him. He looks to be in great shape, however, I could tell that he was crying. When I approached him, he pulled me into a hug, and he apologized a few more times for not being there, and that he really wants to fix this while he has a chance. We started talking, and there was much more to the story than my dad just being a cheater. So here it goes. During my mum's pregnancy, she constantly put my dad down. Like she would tell him, "You should be happy that you're with me and not some unimportant cow," or "You're not good enough for me. I'm just with you for the sake of our child." My dad said that he thought that it was just her pregnancy hormones, but then it got worse after I was born. Her ego was through the roof, but what really took the cake was when he said, "It's such a shame my daughter will probably grow up to be a failure like her father." I was taken aback by this. I asked my dad if that's the reason that he cheated, and he said no, he should have just called off the wedding, but instead, he cheated. He apologized a few more times and told me that he loves me and that he never forgets about me, and that when I texted him for the first time, he couldn't believe that it was me until he saw my profile picture. We both cried for a while until our breakfast arrived. Now, on to my mum. I just want to add that my mum started threatening me after I told her that she's getting evicted. But at first, it went from pathetic apologies to full-on threats. She told me that she'll ruin me if I abandon her and make sure that I lose everything. Anyways, after speaking to my dad, I wanted to see if my mum would confirm it, and she did, no shame. She admitted it like it was an effing achievement, with no remorse, may I add. And then she went back to sweet talks and back to threatening me. Someone told me that I should see if I can forgive her and probably go no contact. After today, I doubt I want anything to do with her. I also think she's the one who told all of my ex-boyfriends that they are not good enough because they all broke up with me shortly after meeting her without any explanation. I am done with her. My grandpa told me that he'll help me with the eviction and possibly a restraining order due to the threats. I'm going to visit my dad as soon as she's out of the house. In the comments, definitely restraining order, and don't fall for her BS threats. I don't think she's entitled to any of the crap anyway, but maybe talking to a lawyer would be a safe option. Seems like she's trying to manipulate you like she did your whole childhood about your pops. You got this. OP says thanks. Our next post is titled, I forced my wife to go to a party, and now my marriage is ruined. Me and my wife Kay have been married for 4 years now. We had an arranged marriage, but so far we have a good marriage and a strong bond. I love her and I would do anything for her in the blink of an eye. Before we got married, we decided that we will have our own individual space and we don't have to tell each other everything unless we feel the other person should definitely know. The arrangement went well for years. I didn't have much to hide or to tell, but she did. When I met Kay for the first time, she was a very conservative person and a bit too devoted to religion. She told me that she wasn't a good person in the past, but since then, she has tried to be a good person living a moral life. She told me some details about her past and how she was a wild girl in college and had several relationships and partners. Even after we got married, she would tell me some details about her past, but I never pressed to get details. She always refers to her college self in the third person, and whenever she talks about her past, she always says that her college self is a horrible person. Since then, she has been more devoted to religion and is quite different from her previous self. I've seen some pictures and videos, and Kay is nothing like that person today. Kay doesn't have a lot of friends and mostly spends her time praying or with other religious stuff. I am the only person that she shares her thoughts with. A few months ago, out of the blue, she got a call from her best friend from college, R. I saw Kay light up after talking to R. Kay felt so happy after reconnecting with them, and they invited her to a party at her place. They also called up their other college friends. Kay was conflicted about going to the party. I convinced her to go, saying the worst that could happen is that she has a boring night. Kay asked me to come along with her. Even during the drive, I was thinking about getting some embarrassing and funny stories about my wife from her friends. When we reached R's place, I realized why Kay was conflicted. Kay was dressed very conservatively, light makeup and very little jewelry. Her friends from college were the exact opposite. They were dressed like twins going out to party all night. The night started normally about the girls sharing funny tales, but their stories quickly became raunchy and then horrifying. I found out Kay and R were the leaders of a group of mean girls. They slept around, abused alcohol and drugs, and on occasions ruined people's lives. Kay stepped away to go to the bathroom when the group turned to me and told me stories about my wife. R talked about Kay sleeping with most of the professors at their college, which I did know about but wasn't aware the number was that high. R purposely told me about how Kay and R systemically gaslight a woman into believing that she is a lesbian and ruined her marriage because her husband had rejected Kay's advances. And all the girls found this incident to be funny. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't find Kay. I went to the bathroom to look for her and found her curled up in a corner crying. I picked her up and left immediately. The entire drive back, Kay was sobbing and repeating, "I'm sorry." She was inconsolable for days, and then she threw herself into religion hard. She started praying for 6 to 8 hours every day. Her daily prayers and rituals usually took 2 hours. I thought that giving her space would help her heal, and she would talk to me whenever she is ready. We haven't talked much since then. She still cuddles up in bed, but doesn't say anything. Last week, she told me that she has decided to be celibate for the rest of her life to repent for her former sins. She asked for my support and apologized for springing it onto me. She has told me to leave her if I can't live a celibate life with her. I've tried talking to her about trying therapy, but she is adamant on her plan. I ruined my near-perfect life by forcing her to go to that party. In the comments, sounds like she might be having a nervous breakdown and using her religion to cope. Does your congregation, assuming she attends church, temple, or religious meeting, have a trusted figure that she could talk to? Maybe one who has a similar background, partied hard but turned away from that life. If Kay still won't talk to you, it may be worth seeing if she'll attend a meeting with them. I wish you both the best. OP responds, I'm trying to get their help, but it's not easy without telling them about my wife's past. I don't want to tell them as I don't know how they will respond knowing about it. I feel they might not help at all and might even leave Kay more isolated than she is right now. She needs therapy. I've heard of people with addiction issues swapping them with healthy behaviors, like 6 hours of meditating or praying. I'm not sure if this is what is happening, but she seems to be in the midst of a nervous breakdown. Maybe reaching out to the people she hurt and sincerely apologizing would help her more than solitary praying and make real amends. I would second this. She needs real therapy, not just a religious advisor. This is especially true if she is using religion as a coping mechanism. Someone should also let her know that sex is okay. Might not get this from a religious counselor. I don't think that you ruined anything. She might have changed, but still needs to deal with her actions. Unfortunately, she may run into her old friends or her victims later in life. She needs therapy and to learn how to cope. Maybe one day when she's at peace with herself, she can be some sort of mentor. She can give testimony and teach people from her mistakes. OP says she's already doing a lot to repent. She is an active member of groups which educate kids about the harm of drugs. Therapy seems to be a non-starter unless I physically force her to be in a room with a therapist. And now on to the update. Last night when we got into bed, I told her, I love you and I will wait for you to be ready for me. At the time, I wasn't even sure what I meant. I just had to talk to her. Her eyes swelled up with tears. I can tell she wanted to wail and scream, but was holding back. She grabbed me and didn't want to let go. She whispered, I love you. We held each other for the rest of the night. In the morning, I asked if she would just talk to a therapist. I assured her that I would try to support her decisions either way. She agreed and kissed me. We hadn't kissed in almost 2 months. I thought my wife was back, but a few minutes later she texted me from the kitchen, my celibacy doesn't have to mean yours. You are free to leave me. If you want to stay, I will not interfere with your physical needs. It killed me reading the text. We haven't said a word to each other since then. In the comments, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. She agreed to see a therapist, so hold her to that and keep your word that you will wait. I know it hurts, but keep talking to her and stay friends. She's kissed you, which is the best thing in 2 months. You got this. I see it the same way. She is clearly receptive to OP's feelings, and she feels the guilt for denying him intimacy, but she also clearly still has no healthy way to deal with these feelings of guilt, so don't give up just yet, OP. It's a very good sign that she agreed to a therapist, but also keep in mind that everything now is definitely a journey and probably not a short one. 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still progress. OP says, I think it's 1 forward, 2 back. My marriage is over. I just need to accept it. I still love her and I will wait for that love, but she has already let me go. The text message can mean, I feel like I'm a burden to you, so I'm trying to absolve you of guilt if you want to leave. This is exactly what the message means, OP. Just stick to your word that you'll guide her to a therapist. Hold on for a few sessions and see if there is any progress. I know it's hard, but I guess it's the only way, if you wish to keep the marriage alive. This absolutely screams self-destruction to me. She feels guilty about her past and unworthy of love, so she's pushing you to leave and prove her right in a way. Up to you if you leave, but I disagree that she'd given up or moved on from your marriage. I think this, self-destruction right now, physical needs can wait, and she really needs to find a way to forgive herself for who she was. Stereotypical Reddit answer is she needs therapy is one of the best ways to do that, and maybe it is, but try doing other things. Try dating again, go to the movies, get some dinner, go do fun things that she liked to do. Show her that she is more than her past mistakes and she can be herself now, but she needs to find a way to let go of that guilt. I'm not going to excuse prior actions. However, most of us have things in our life that we regret. Looking back and cringing or feeling bad about past actions means that we are growing, and this is life. We grow and we grow. And now on to the final update. Kay started therapy thanks to the efforts of some members of her religious group. She will need a lot of time, and I don't know if I will ever get my wife back. Everyone keeps telling me that she will get better soon, but I'm not sure if she would still be my wife when she does. Even if she does come back, I've heard things about her past that make it very hard for us to just continue our relationship. Some details make me feel that Kay doesn't deserve happiness. For now, I will support her to help her with her recovery, but I'm not sure what happens after. Oh my god, what did she do to make you say that? Jesus. In the comments, do what you think is the best option. Don't force things or do things against your will. It'll all be okay one way or the other. She deserves to find whatever happiness she can with a partner who has given informed consent to be with her, given her past behavior. If she can find such a partner. I personally think she probably can, but that doesn't change the fact that you aren't that partner. You were misled and misinformed, and this breakdown further provides you with evidence that this is not the healthy, honest person that you thought you had married. You would be well justified in protecting yourself and your future and leaving her to pick up the pieces of the consequences of her past behavior and, much more importantly, her dishonesty about that behavior. Am I the a-hole for saying no to an open bar with no limit and calling the venue to set up the limit? So I, 42 female, and my husband, 44 male, have a 21-year-old daughter. She's getting married soon. We are very close to her. We have a great relationship, and we absolutely adore her fiancé, 22 male. We spend a lot of time with them. My husband and I are paying in full for their wedding with the exception of her wedding dress, veil, and headpiece. That my mum bought for her as a gift from the grandparents. Everything has been going smoothly with the wedding planning. We have very much stayed out of it politely, unless asked for advice or suggestions. We know it's their wedding and their choice. We have been involved, of course. We've gone to the food tasting at the venue, did the dress shopping, and a few other things that they invited us to. But mostly we just don't interfere, and I just happily write the check for the deposits, sign the contracts, and send them out. The venue, decorator, caterer, bakery, photographer, florist, and entertainment have been booked, and all's been paid for either in full or they have deposits made. The issue comes with the bar. They want a completely open bar wedding reception with no limit. My husband and I both immediately said, absolutely not, no. This is the only thing we told her no to. It's also the only thing they tried to go over budget with. Both my daughter and her fiancé got angry and told us that it's not up for debate and it's not negotiable. They're doing it. Her fiancé, who is usually very laid back, polite, and easygoing, also called me an a-hole for trying to control them and dictate what they do for their wedding, and I don't have the right to. I told them that as long as we are paying for it, it will be within my budget and control. I told them the set amount that we were willing to pay for the bar tab, and that's it. Anything else above and beyond that will be their responsibility. I didn't yell at them. I would not even have called it an argument, just a disagreement, I guess. They immediately left angry. I didn't think that it was unreasonable for me to set the boundaries for my budget, so I wasn't upset about it. Now, here is where I may be an a-hole. I called the venue the other day, the day after our disagreement, and spoke with the coordinator. I signed the contract, so I have the authority. We had a candid discussion about the size of the wedding and the average cost for bar tabs that size, and the different options. After that was thoroughly discussed, I set a predetermined amount for the bar tab, and she noted on the contract that anything after the limit was reached was to be paid by the guests. I then set it so that no drink could be ordered that was more than $10. Generous, considering average top-shelf drinks are about $7 to $8 here. I called my daughter after I did that and informed her of what I did, and I doubled down on the budget and absolutely not paying for a fully open, unlimited bar at her wedding. They both called me an a-hole again. Now they won't speak to me or answer my calls. So am I the a-hole? I don't think I am, but I'll take my verdict fair and square. Edit 1. With the current bar package I set up, no one is paying for anything unless the budgeted limit is reached. Then the option is to turn it into a cash bar where guests pay. And if that happens, which it should not, the bride and groom will be informed of the budgeted limit being reached. They can choose at that time to contribute to the extra expense at that point if they want to, instead of a cash bar. But here's the deal. 1. The budget limit is still the same amount that I told them it would be. The venue coordinator estimated it's more than enough. It is by far much higher than the average bar tab for the size of her wedding. It should be more than enough to last all evening, and no guests should have to pay for drinks. 2. The bar is still quote-unquote open, with the exception of a price cap on what can be ordered. Guests cannot order a free drink from the open bar that costs more than $10 per drink. The average top shelf drink there is $7 to $8 per drink. It is not unreasonable. This way, no one can order a $2,000 shot or other extremely expensive drinks that would blow through the budget limit in a very short time. 3. There is no quantity limit per person on drinks. And according to the venue coordinator, this is the most common way of doing things. Also, if the bride and groom find this unacceptable, they can call the venue coordinator and set up their own contract, making them legally responsible for whatever the expense is above my limits. Edit 2. People are saying they are very entitled. I am not arguing that point, but I think it's fair to say that they are generally not this way. She is very humble, kind, and compassionate. She's a good person and wasn't raised as a spoiled, pampered princess with no boundaries. She has had them, and we are not doormats for her to manipulate. They both work full-time and both make good money. They're financially independent and stable. He has always been a decent and respectful young man and responsible with his finances too. They have both repeatedly thanked us several times throughout this wedding process. They have been very grateful and appreciative. I have no idea what caused this abrupt change now. We are very close to them, and we typically spend time with them 4 or more nights a week, either at our home or theirs for dinner, and we do a lot of stuff with them in public too. They take their younger siblings out regularly too. And edit 3, his parents are not contributing. His dad isn't involved in his life, and his mum is disabled and on fixed income. In the comments, not the a-hole. Your daughter sounds entitled and spoiled. Does she even realize how lucky she is to have someone pay for her wedding? My fiancé and I have no effing financial support, so forgive me that it makes me sick to see someone so unappreciative of everything you are doing. Keep your foot down. You give in, it'll only get worse. 21 and 22 nowadays feels so young, and I hope they mature throughout their marriage. There's a super easy way to fix that. Sorry, kiddo, we've decided that we are no longer paying for the bar. If they continue to fight it, okay, no problem. You can have whatever you like now that you are paying for it all. Holy cow, is your kid entitled. A limit is good just in general. No one needs to be getting tanked at a wedding, but you are literally paying for everything and haven't butted in any other plans. I think you should ask her why she truly needs an open bar and see her sputter in answer. What's she gonna say? All of my friends want to get wasted on your time? Not the a-hole. And OP says, it is really appalling. She's not usually like this, and like I said in the original post, it's the only thing that she's tried going over budget on. I just don't understand why. I did ask her that, and she said that she wants everybody to have a good time and not to be limited to 1 or 2 drinks and then have to pay the rest themselves. I told her there was a middle ground, but she didn't need a fully open bar. They are being stubborn. If this is her reasoning, all the more to put your foot down over it. Creating an environment of compulsory drunkenness, especially at a wedding, does not a celebration make. With a young bridal and groom party, you can almost guarantee there will be drama as a result. Better she learned the lesson of alcohol is a terrible social lubricant now than later. Having a drink limit is beyond rational. I don't want to suggest pulling funding, but this is absolutely appalling and ungrateful behavior. I have to ask, if she's normally a gracious and chill kid, have you asked her frankly, and in a conversation where he's not present, if this is coming from the fiancé and his family? And OP replies, I've not asked her straight out and away from her fiancé, but I highly suspect that this is his idea and his want. He's the one with the rowdy drinking friends. She's got the more calm and relaxed friends who aren't much of drinkers. I can't say for sure that she's not wanting this too, but it's plausible that it's more him than her. And now, on to the update. Thank you for all the insight and support. I have an update. SIL is son-in-law in this post. I understand people are confusing it with sister-in-law. So, the second day after the argument, my parents lovingly got involved. My dad is the wise old man, and my mom is the perpetual peacemaker. So they invited my daughter and son-in-law over a couple of days into this argument and had a talk with them about the whole situation. They calmly listened to the kids and had a candid talk about the situation. My mum pointed out that being estranged and/or tense with the parents on her wedding day was not something that my daughter wanted. By the time the talk was over, my daughter and sister-in-law fully understood that they had been extremely inappropriate. The next day, my sister-in-law sent me a very large mixed bouquet of my favorite flowers to my work. Later that evening, they both stopped by to apologize in person. They brought a nice gift basket of some of mine and her dad's favorite things. They told us that they had both realized the next day, after the argument, that they were rude and disrespectful once they understood what they were doing and that paying for the bar contract was more than reasonable. They said they felt guilty for yelling at me, but at the time were still angry that I made arrangements for the bar contract without them having a say in it. So they continued to just ignore our calls until my dad pointed out that I was well within my rights to do what I did, since my husband and I were the wedding benefactors and I was the sole, legally responsible party for the bar contract. He also pointed out that it was logical common sense to protect the budget, and the bottom line is that while it would have been a courtesy to include them in the conversation because it was their wedding, it ultimately wasn't their business how I negotiated the bar contract, as it was not their money paying for it. He also pointed out that I had been more than generous and reasonable and did not screw them over or humiliate them as hosts, and they realized that's true. So this past weekend was the wedding. It was a beautiful wedding, a fun, happy day. Overall, it was low stress and just an enjoyable day. At the reception, my son-in-law nabbed me for a dance and told me he's very grateful for having me and my husband in his life, as we are the good and stable parents that he didn't have, and that he loves us both. He told me he told my husband the same thing while they were getting ready. My husband was there, and his dad wasn't. It was not lost on him at what good parents we are to him too. As for the alcohol and bar tab, we did not go over budget by a long shot, and everyone had plenty of options and didn't go without. There was a total of one younger man who got completely wasted. He wasn't a fighter and wasn't causing any problems. He had his girlfriend with him, and they had a hotel room rented at the venue, so they let him be. A couple more people were fairly drunk, but not troublesome. So now, they're on their honeymoon, and we're dog-sitting their corgi, and all is good. In the comments, good update. Your actions were very reasonable, and I'm happy your daughter and son-in-law both apologized and realized the error of their ways. Hopefully it was just the stress of everything that got to them. That sounds really good, and honestly I think their initial reaction was more or less hearing the topic with kid ears. I think they interpreted your managing your budget as, I the parent know better than you that you kids are too irresponsible for an open bar, so I'm cutting you off before you barf, young lady. No discussion. The grown-ups have already decided. When I went into the thread, this is also 100% how I heard it. Then she got onto the budget part being the reason, and I was like, oh yeah, duh. This proves that r/am I the a-hole, as a whole, is too prone to suggesting the nuclear option. She isn't a horrible, entitled monster who was too immature to get married, as the top comments are suggesting. She had a couple of bad days. She was probably just stressed out from the wedding preparations or something. We all have bad weeks. None of us is always level-headed and reasonable. We are all assholes sometimes. OP replies, yes, I know both of them to be really good peoples, as I said in my original post. I still understand that as the parent, it's easy to have blinders on sometimes, and only want to see the good in your children. In this case, I'd like to believe that it was just stress and pre-wedding nerves and just an out-of-control misunderstanding that led to so much more nonsense than it ever should have or needed to be. I still hold firm that they are truly good people and just had a few bad days. Our next post is titled, I told my wife no, I'm not going on family holiday with your family. So I always put my wife and her family first. I moved to my wife's hometown because she wanted to be closer to hers. Her family and mine are total opposites. I'm an only child. She is the eldest of 3. My extended family is 4 people, including me. Hers is 30 plus. My family are introverted and don't drink. Hers are super extroverts and booze up whenever they can. My parents are disabled, hers are healthy. Honestly, my family are boring and hers are fun, and I've gotten used to it, and it's horrible to say, but because of being around them so much, I prefer hanging out with her family than I do my own. I always do what she wants. I'm a pushover, but happy wife, happy life, right? Even if it's something that I don't want to do, I do it to make her happy. First dance at our wedding? Terrified, and I didn't want to do one. I don't like being the center of attention, but she cried and I caved in. Christmas? Her family is large, so have a big fun party on Christmas Day, and mine's small and boring, so she doesn't want to be there. Where to live? She wanted to be close to her family, so now mine's a 3-hour drive away and I hardly see them except for birthdays. Well, this year, it's her grandma's 70th, her mum's 50th, and my 30th birthday, so her family have planned a huge family holiday of 25 plus people to be away for 3 weeks to celebrate everyone's birthdays. The catch is that it's not anyone's birthday except mine. We'd fly home 1 day after my birthday. Obviously, my parents want to see me on my 30th and have said they're upset because as usual, I'm pandering to her family, as always, and they're being left out again. I want to spend time with my family especially, as I only really see them on birthdays. I'm used to their boringness, but to do that, apparently, I'm ruining her family trip. But if I go on the trip, I'm putting my family second again and further damaging that relationship. My parents are older and disabled, and my gran has early onset dementia, so they don't have as much time in comparison to hers. We can't get a shorter holiday. We can't go at another time of the year because of work and school commitments, so I told her no. For the first time ever, I told her, no, I'm not going. You can, but I'm staying here. I'm an adult. I want to spend my birthday with my family. To which she replied, I am your family, and then stormed off, and she is not taking it too well. She's acting like a spoiled child, crying, screaming, calling her mum to say that she can't go now because I'm not going, so now her family think I'm a massive dick, and none of them can see that I have another side to my family. She's packed a bag since I started writing this, and she says she's going to stay at her mum's until I can make up my mind about what's more important, my family or hers. I have no idea what to do. I just needed to vent. In the comments, I love my in-laws and I love my family. There is no effing way in hell I'm going on a 3-week vacation with any of them. I love my parents. I like his, but nope. No way, no how. Even if it's a luxury, bougie vacay, am I staying with any of them for 3 weeks? Let it play out. You have never set boundaries before, and she doesn't like this one. Don't argue with her or try to convince her. Speak gently, but hold your ground. 100% this. She's used to getting what she wants in all things as the eldest of 3, but not this time. You have a family too, and they matter, and your decision is final. If she needs to spend time away to realize that, wish her well, but don't relent. Ironically, I usually see younger siblings getting what they want, while the oldest has it hardest. I'm speaking from experience, but I only have one other sibling. Happy spouse, happy house. You deserve to be happy too. That right there is my favorite marriage quote. I cringe with the happy wife, happy life garbage. If your wife can't be happy on her own, you're not going to do it for her. And now, onto the update. Wow, I only wanted a place to vent and didn't expect such a response. Just to clear up a few things. I love my wife and I'm not going to divorce her over this. She does so much for me and is normally a kind and loving person. We've been together 6 years and married 18 months. We don't have kids but are trying. We live in the UK, and the reason why we can't go at any other time is because of the UK laws on taking children out of school during term time for holidays. So it's been planned during the autumn break so the parents don't get fired. I woke up this morning to the following text from her mum. Do you know how disappointed I am in you right now? It's not even that you're not coming away for my birthday, it's the fact that you're not supporting my daughter. You know how important family is to her. End of. You know how much she wants to come, and you telling her to go on her own is not being supportive. You've put a full stop to it all. I don't get what your issue is. It's one thing, then another, and she can't do right for wrong in trying? It's supposed to be a lovely family holiday for my 50th. It's made me even more determined to stand my ground. I think I'm going to take the advice of another user and send her mum my reasoning. They seem to forget that I have parents too. I just don't want to be hated. This holiday is 2 months away, and I don't want 8 months of hate, especially when we live in such close proximity. Update 2. Last night, my wife and I went out for dinner. My idea, so we could speak, and I hoped being in a public place would make her less likely to scream and cry, etc. I told her all the advice that I had read on here and showed her the text that I received from her mum. She listened to everything that I had to say, and I could see her physically cringe when she read the text. She apologized from the way that she had acted and said that she hadn't even considered it from my point of view. I told her what one Redditor had said, sorry, so many comments I can't remember a name, and if we were going to do this for 30, 50, 70, what's going to happen at 40, 60, 80, or 50, 70, 90? Are we going to have this spoilt child situation when she's nearly 40, or are we going to leave it behind now in her 20s? She told me her family had all got together to book the trip the night that she left, and she felt crappy because I said that we weren't going, so now no one had booked until I'd finished throwing my toys out the pram. I told her that I didn't say we can't go, I said I wasn't going, but she could. I ignored the toys and pram comment, as that pissed me off. I reminded her that her mum's actual birthday was 2 weeks before we fly, and her nan's birthday is in 2 weeks from now. She'll get to spend time with them, have a party, etc. on the actual day, and that's something that I want for myself too. I don't want to be away from my family in a different country with 25 plus people that I don't know that well on my 30th. I want to do something with my family over my birthday before it's too late. My mum's health is rapidly deteriorating, and she can't do much as it is, and who knows how long my gran has before this dementia really sets in. My mum always talked about doing a Baltic cruise / seeing the Northern Lights for my gran's 80th, but that's still 2 years away, and I honestly don't think in 2 years either of them will be in any fit state, so I suggested that we do it for my 30th instead. My wife seemed keen, and she pulled up some dates. There's one that leaves 3 days before my birthday and comes back 3 days after. Perfect timing. We called my mum to ask, and she sounded delighted. She herself hadn't even considered how my gran would be at 80 and thought that it would be a lovely trip to make memories on. We then went to her mum's house. No apology or anything from her, but you can't win everything. To tell her together, we weren't going for the 3 weeks, but we had found a 1-week booking that coincided with their 3-week trip in a hotel that was just down the beach, same chain / resort, just a different building. Enough distance to have our own break, but still include the family for evening meals, etc. No one had even suggested looking at shortened dates, and I hadn't even considered it until I read so many comments saying, just come back sooner. All in all, I'm going to take this as a win. I don't think my bank balance will though, and she's seen me put my foot down and mean it. I'm not going to let her have her way all the time at my own detriment. I've not caved for an easier life, and together we found a peaceful solution. My family haven't been excluded and are so excited. My mum's like a kid at Christmas, and hers are, well, happy that they can book now, and at least the butthole son-in-law is only there for a week. Hopefully, as it's not for 8 months, they might forget. Screw the happy wife, happy life mentality. I have never heard happy spouse, happy house before, but I think I'll be using that mantra from now on. Like you all said, it's a two-way street, give and take, and compromise. Thanks to everyone for the advice and support. And now in the comments, the wife expects her family to be important to her husband, but is OP's family as important to her? Doesn't sound like it. It's not even just that. Her attitude was that her family of origin are his family and he should prioritize them, not just over his own family of origin, but over himself. If her "I'm your family" strop cut both ways, then he is her family first too. So his birthday should come first for her, over and above that of members of her family of origin. It's hypocrisy right to the core. Ironically, she was putting her family above him on his birthday and getting mad at him for wanting to do his own thing. This sort of thing reminds me so much of the saying, if you're privileged, equality feels like oppression. And I think there is definitely a non-malicious way to fall into it, especially if you allow for some grey between perfectly good and right and evil narcissist. You just get used to things. And then those things become the only ones that are in the equation when you decide what to do and what's fair. This family has gotten used to OP always joining them, to the point they probably don't even think about OP wanting to see his parents as an option to consider. The trick to being a good person is, of course, how quickly you can recalibrate once someone mentions those factors that you've forgotten. But I've seen even very good, kind, and reasonable people struggle a bit to take in others' perspectives when they're so used to the one that has been their official one for so long. A more ridiculous example of this might be someone who is used to getting a ride with a friend to work, and now that the friend has decided not to do it one day, they want the friend to pay for an Uber, since they suddenly have an added cost. But there is also tons of tiny situations where someone has built up their calculation of what counts and not, and then has a hard time seeing that the other things might also matter, and that their internal logic won't work once those other things are added. I don't know, I just find this really fascinating, especially how reasonable people, like I think OP's wife is after all, can still really fall into it. Very spot on. I don't think his wife is an evil witch. She was just shocked to hear something different from his normal behavior, but got over it with compromise. Have a great day. Breaking up with girlfriend/fiancé of 11 years because all she wants to do is party. I, 28 male, am not too big on posting, so let's see how this goes. I've been with my now fiancé, 29 female, for 11 years. We were high school sweethearts, and as of late, all my fiancé wants to do is go to bars and drink with her new friends and co-workers, and it's really starting to bother me. For some context, as I mentioned above, we've been together for 11 years. I was a football player in high school, so I have and/had a more athletic build. She was more of a loser, not trying to be harsh, just being honest in high school. She was more lonely. With me being an ex-football player and going to college, I got invited to parties and gatherings constantly. She's always been unsure of herself, so she really didn't want me to go to those gatherings. She insisted that I was going to find someone better than her there, so I shouldn't go. I'm more of a homebody anyway, so I didn't mind not going. Don't get me wrong, I would have liked to attend some of the gatherings, but I would rather comfort her by not going. Fast forward the last 2 years, and she just started her RN nursing job. We both have really good jobs and make good money. She started getting invites to hang out with friends after work. Now, I'm not a jealous guy, so I don't care. We both work overnight, so she would go to breakfast with her co-workers in the mornings after work. Again, I'm not worried about it. The breakfast in the morning slowly progressed to where now she's going bar hopping with her friends at night and not getting home until 3 a.m. She lost some weight in that time, so I attributed it to being more confident. We're saving for a house, planning on having kids soon, and I just proposed in December, and she wants to be married by February of 2023. With all that in mind, I've been grinding my butt to save extra money, picking up overtime shifts where I can, and making lifestyle sacrifices. One day, she asked me if she can go to a bar with her co-workers for his or her birthday. Mind you, she had already been out 3 different times for co-workers' birthdays this month. I told her I didn't think that it was a good idea and should give it a little break. She got upset with me, telling me I'm not letting her live her life the way that she wants to live her life. She also said that since I would, then it shouldn't be that big of a deal. I was originally scheduled off for that day, but I picked up an overtime shift. I told her that, and she got upset. Now we're broken up and trying to figure it all out. She says I shouldn't hold her not allowing me to go places over her head. I told her that I'm not trying to hold it over her head, but we have life goals that require something different than just going out all night and having a good time. I told her I'm all for her going out, but she can do it in moderation. Maybe instead of going out with friends 4 times in 1 month, maybe she should go out with them 2 times in 1 month and pick up 2 overtime shifts. She said she doesn't want to do overtime on her days off, like I do. She's now saying that I'm too demanding. Like, if she wants to get tattoos all over her body, I should allow that. If she wants to smoke weed and party, I should allow that. I told her I'm not going to stop her from doing what she wants to do, I just won't be here standing by until she's ready to get this family life back on the road. Am I wrong here? I'm losing my crap. In the comments, you grew apart, dude. The only thing I see wrong in this relationship is that allowing the other to do something is a thing. You are deciding for different things on life right now. What can you do? What can anyone do? We all should find what makes us happy and follow that path. It just seems like your path is not together with hers anymore. It sucks, that's it. I agree that they grew apart, but I also think that he's being a little too much asking her not to go out 4 times a month with her friends and co-workers. That just seems like a non-issue to me. I'd totally get it if it was 2 to 3 times a week, but averaging once a week seems totally fine to me. Well, if we're playing that game, she asked for too much since she wanted the commitment and is now backing off. It isn't about the number of times that's the issue, it's the finance that they both need to save for the future, and she's falling back on it. So it's either neither's fault, or both had some part in this. You two are at totally different stages of life right now. She's found herself and wants to go out and explore and have fun. She's not ready to settle down and have a family, but you, on the other hand, are. People grow at different paces. It's probably best you two not get married, because otherwise there could be some strong resentment. Time apart may help her see what she really wants, but that may not be home life. You shouldn't compromise on what you want either. Starting over sucks, but being miserable and unhappy is far worse. Back up to the post, we have an edit. Thank you for all the replies. Most comments seem to agree. For the few that ask why is 4 times too much per month, it's not about the times per se, it's more about me committing to furthering our future while she only wants to go out and have fun. If she was going out on average 8 times per month, I would ask her to go out on 4 and pick up 4 overtime shifts. I know she's a nurse, and we both have trying, tough jobs, but drinking 2 to 4 times a week and bar hopping is not the answer. I also forgot to mention that she's the one who was asking for more of a commitment prior to her starting a new job. She told me that we had been together too long for her not to at least to have a ring on her finger or a child. She wanted all of this first. When we were 22 to 25 years old, she would want me to have a child with her. I was uncomfortable at the time because I wanted to be settled in my career first. I grew up with a tougher lifestyle, so I wanted to make sure that I could take care of my children by myself comfortably if it had to come to that. P.S. Sorry for so many typos of the initial statement. I wasn't thinking that it would be this many people looking at this. Edit, this will be my last post. So I've decided to break up with her and get my ring back. Spent over $15,000 on the ring, now she is literally on her knees, begging, pleading, and asking for forgiveness. I told her that I'm over this relationship, and now all she's doing is crying. Sucks that it had to come to this for her to truly understand how I was feeling, but it is what it is. Thank you everyone for the advice. I'll see what happens from here. Edit, this will really be my last post. So I see a lot of people saying that I'm controlling. I'm not one to look past criticism, but I have to say that I disagree. When she says I'm not allowing her to do stuff, it should have been better worded. What I mean by that is that she wants to be tatted from head to toe. She wants to be out trying molly, weed, mushrooms, etc., because that's what her friends are doing. I'm sorry. I would rather not have a girlfriend or fiancé with tattoos everywhere and does hardcore drugs. In addition to that, she already has 3 big tattoos on her person now, from the top of her shoulder to her elbow type tats. I like what I like, and nothing can change that. When I say allow, what I'm actually saying is, she can do whatever she wants to do. However, if I don't like what she does, I have every right to leave, right? Am I wrong for not wanting a wife that's tatted from head to toe and does mushrooms? As for the people advising I should just talk to her more, this same attitude has been going on for 7 months now. I talked to her when I first began to notice the change, but nothing has changed. Today was my breaking point. I hope I addressed most concerns. And lastly, for the people saying 4 times a month is not that much, I'm not saying 4 times is too much. I'm simply saying, could she at least implement some overtime in there somewhere? That way, she could live her best life while also showing me that she's still working towards our life goals. Last thing is, some of you guys are dicks. I'm literally asking for advice. There is no need to be harsh to either me or her. Just give advice. That would be greatly appreciated. And now, on to the update. I stayed with my fiancé, and it bit me in the ass. Hello Reddit, back at it again. So, in my last post, I'm not sure if you can see it or not, I was talking about how my fiancé was starting to go out with her friends more. I don't really want to rewrite the entire post, so hopefully you can see it. Long story short, I found out she was cheating on me today. The crazy thing is, I was truly getting ready to leave her around the time of my last post. I was done, but she got pregnant. I stayed with her trying to make it work, and she was cheating the entire time. Basically, I've been working overtime a lot because she doesn't get paid for her baby bonding time. Since she doesn't get paid, I picked up the slack and worked. We have Ring cameras throughout the house that consistently pick up motion. While I was at work, I repeatedly would get a notification of motion detected. It's not uncommon for her to be up this late due to us having a newborn and the baby consistently being hungry. I go and check the camera, and I hear she's on the phone. On the camera, it sounds like she's on the phone with a guy. I'm thinking to myself, that's strange. Let's call her and see who she's on the phone with. She says, oh, I was on the phone with my friend. The friend she was referring to is a female. I tell her to go watch the video because it sounds like she's on the phone with a guy. She says no, she wasn't on the phone with a guy. She was listening to a video of a guy talking while talking to her friend. At this point, I'm on high alert. I'm trying to figure out how to catch her lie blatantly because she's adamant that it was the video of a guy talking that I was hearing. So here is what I do. I didn't want to tell her to send me the contact of her friend because her friend would obviously lie for her and she would delete the guy's number. Spoiler alert, she had the guy's number under her friend's number. So I FaceTime her. I have her screen share with me and I then have her go to her friend's contact and strange. Why is there 2 numbers listed? She said, oh, her friend has 2 phones, so she had both numbers. I say, okay. I call the first number on my work phone, and a guy picks up the phone, SMH. She finally admitted to talking to the guy for a year, but she claims that she hadn't cheated with him. She started talking to him when we were going through a rough patch in our relationship. I've always told her that if she wanted to be with someone else, she could just leave. I'm not a cry-for-you type of guy, and I would respect her a lot more for just being honest about her wanting to be with someone else. Crap sucks. I've been with this girl for 11 going on 12 years. High school sweethearts. I'm not a bad-looking guy, and I've turned down a lot of women to be faithful to her. She literally wasted a ton of my life that I could never get back. We just had a kid and bought a house together. Now all of that is over with. So I guess the moral of this story is, don't ignore the signs of cheating. Her phone would always be on Do Not Disturb. She suddenly wanted to be out with her friends. She would do other suspicious things that I just can't think of right now. I'll be getting a paternity test on the child to see if he's mine. Just heartbroken and torn. I'm also not the off myself type, so don't worry. I just need some time to get over the heartbreak. Thanks for reading. Update. To add to the heartbreak, I learned that the guy that she cheated on me with is 37 years old with 5 kids. For comparison, I'm 29 with no kids, except the one that I might share with her. I make $150K a year with a really stable job. She's also 29. He's a hospital janitor. Can't make this crap up, dude. She cheated on me with him after knowing him for 1 month. She had sex and did stuff in his car on their lunch break. You can't make this crap up. In the comments, about time someone on Reddit understands you don't have to stay in failed relationships. Good luck, mate. Why did he stay with her after that first post? Even without the cheating coming to light, they had simply grown apart to the point of incompatibility. He'd matured and was trying to build a life for them, or at least for himself, whereas all she cared about was the next good time. He said that he stayed because she got pregnant, but unless it caused her to rethink and settle down, which it clearly did not, then I can't see any reason to stick around. Life tip: if you're in a relationship and the relationship itself is making you unhappy, get out of it. Kid or no kid. Sunk cost fallacy. I've seen so many miserable relationships because of this. It just blows my mind how much people don't realize or care about the logic behind this. Never continue a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it. Realizing how much this applies to every area of life changed how I process situations. I'll walk out of bad movies that I already paid for, stop eating a bad meal at restaurants, etc. You may lose the time and money that you've already invested, but you can save the rest. She got pregnant because they were still having sex even though he was unhappy and eventually planning on breaking up with her. Life tip: don't sleep with people you're questioning your relationship with. I have several guy friends who I saw they were trapped by various relationships and were desperate to get out, but not unhappy enough to stop having unprotected sex and making babies with them when they had no kids, so they could have had a clean breakup to start with. Happened to my uncle. Towards the end of their divorce, my aunt got pregnant with their third kid. What's worse is the age difference between him and the middle child was 11 years. My poor cousins are doing their best to abide by their mother's rules for the safety of their youngest sibling and are ready to pull him out from under her care. Context: she feeds my youngest cousin 1 box of pizza a week, always naps, prevents socializing because she doesn't believe in having friends, leaves the house uncleaned for years, constantly yells at her friends, isolates them from family, prevented the oldest from attending our grandmother's funeral because she wanted to take her out someplace else to grieve, but changed plans to go out drinking with friends, etc. once he's of age. 3 lives completely altered outside of their control because my uncle couldn't resist one of the worst kinds of people to become a mother one last time. I can never forget the heat that he got from the rest of our family, including my cousins, when it happened. I don't even understand how they got to 11 years. There is no love in this text or in this relationship. It's very simple to see. I don't even think he liked his girlfriend from the beginning. I like that he says that she asked for commitment. Dude, if you don't want to commit, don't. Yeah, so my girlfriend's a loser and sucked a janitor's dick. I make $150K. Can you believe it? Obviously, the girlfriend sucks for cheating, but I'm getting major butthole flags from the guy too. He called her a loser. If I was describing somebody who didn't have friends in high school, now that I'm an adult, I would use very different language than I was a popular football player and she was a loser. Dude screams socially peaked in high school. Glad he's got a good job and looking for a stable future, but damn, the first comparison he gives is calling himself a football jock and her a loser? He seems incredibly stuck in the past. Our next post is titled, "My boyfriend gave away my Hamilton tickets. Am I being selfish for just wanting to break up over this?" Backstory. My mum is genuinely one of the funniest, kindest, sweetest people I've ever met, and I'm genuinely lucky to have been her daughter. She had me fairly young, raised me by herself, and while we were pretty poor growing up, she did her damnedest to make sure that I got a good education and had everything I needed as a kid. One of the things that we share is a love of the theater. She would save up and take me to all the musicals that stopped on tour in our town, and while we were always in the cheap seats, it was always something that we both greatly looked forward to. These memories of going to the theater with my mum are very precious to me and is one of the main factors in why I work in the entertainment industry today. Corporate side. I have a horrendous singing voice. Fast forward to today. Like most theater nerds, my mum and I are basically obsessed with Hamilton, and for those of you who aren't familiar with it, this show is basically impossible to get tickets for at this point, unless you want to see it in January of next year. I'm lucky enough to be in a financial position with my job that I could afford tickets for a show in July for me and my mum. These are amazing seats. 5th row center, and through some type of divine intervention, I managed to snag tickets for the night that Lin-Manuel Miranda's, the creator and lead in Hamilton, performs her final performance. I surprised my mum with these tickets back in December. I bought them in October, I think, for Christmas. I'm making a whole week of it. I put us up in a really nice hotel, I made reservations at a bunch of restaurants that we both want to try, and we're going to do a bunch of touristy crap in general. Plus, try to see if we can fit in at least one other show before we leave. We are both incredibly excited for this. My mom even has a little Hamilton countdown that she's doing on a mini chalkboard that she uses as a planner. She sends me pics every day when she changes it. It's cute. In January, I began dating this guy that I'll refer to as Josh. We were casual and not exclusive for a while, but became serious within the last 2 months. He also works in the corporate side of entertainment, but at a different agency that I do. He also has a higher position than me, and makes a lot more money than I do. This becomes important. We met at an industry event, and we hit it off instantly. I thought I could get really serious about this guy, and up to this point, there have been no red flags that I've seen. Although, to be honest, right now I'm sifting through all my memories to see if there is something that I missed. He also comes from a much, much wealthier family than I do. Josh has a younger sister that I'll call Jennifer, who is 17, that's kind of going through a bit of a troubled teen phase. She cuts classes, smokes, and is really disrespectful to her parents. I've only met her once, but as far as I know, she's not doing anything too bad. She's just kind of a sad kid and could really benefit from some therapy. I floated this by Josh, but he said that his parents are kind of disdainful of therapy in general. Josh says they can't reach out to her no matter what they do, and they've tried everything except trying to get her a counselor, but whatever. Actual problem time. Sunday night, I was at my place with Josh. We were drinking wine and cuddling while watching the Tonys, the theater awards show. My mum was texting me during the Hamilton performance and geeking out about how excited she was. I laughed and showed my mum's text to Josh because I thought that it was so adorable, and he didn't say anything off, but he was acting kind of strange after. He asked me what date the show we were going to was, and I told him, and then he went into another room to take a phone call. I thought nothing of it because we have to take random phone calls like that for our jobs all the time, and he's going through kind of a tough time at his. He was in an unusually good mood afterwards and said that he had to go home early because he had to sign some forms at the office early tomorrow, before we met up to get brunch with his parents later that day. Again, nothing too unusual and pretty common with the both of us. He picks me up at work for brunch with his parents, and again, he is in an unusually good mood. I ask what's up, and he says vaguely that things are going well at the office and this deal he's trying to make is finally going through. I don't really press for info because we both try to avoid work topics, partially due to work crap being fairly banal, and partially because we both have to sign some pretty gnarly NDAs a lot of the time. And this is only my second time meeting his parents, so I'm still a bit nervous about brunch. We get to the brunch place, and the first thing his mum does when she sees me is give me a huge warm hug and profoundly thank me for my kindness. Her dad also gives me a huge handshake and thanks me for helping out with Jen. I was kind of WTFing because I have no clue what they're talking about. I ask what she means, and she said for giving her the Hamilton tickets. I turn around to Josh and he just has this big grin on his face. Reddit, that time my boyfriend was talking about on the phone for business, he was actually on the phone with Jen promising that I would give her my Hamilton tickets. I was so thrown off by this that I kind of, not very tactfully I admit, said how I had no clue about this. Josh looks pissed and his parents are equally thrown off, but instead of getting mad at Josh, his mum just says, "Well, you can still give them to her though, right?" And they all just look at me like I'm supposed to just agree with this. And I try to explain that the trip is actually for me and my mum, and how important this is to my mum. All three of them start going on about how Jen is super excited about this, and that this is the first time that she's not been mad/expressed happiness to them in a while. And that's how the next half hour goes basically, until the parents leave, mad, and the dad calls me a selfish cow. I'm so flabbergasted that I sort of just put up with it, but I could barely get in a word. Josh and I go outside to the brunch place, and he starts screaming at me about my selfishness and how Jen is going through a much harder time than they thought. He wasn't very clear on this, so I'm not quite sure what he meant, and that I'm being childish because it's just a musical. I hate having arguments in public, Also, this is one of my favorite brunch spots, and I wanted to be able to come back without being embarrassed, so I wasn't really engaging. He eventually called me an expletive, and then left in his car, which is awkward as hell because it was valet parking, so he was just kind of stewing by the valet stand while I was waiting for my Uber. Later that night, I texted him saying while I wasn't giving up my tickets, there are still some available on that date. However, they cost about $2,500 due to ticket scalpers jacking up the price. Believe me, this is not a problem for either the parents or my boyfriend. He literally bought a $3,000 watch for funsies last week. The only response that I got was that was an exorbitant fee. I agree, but not the point. He refuses to pay, and he didn't understand why I couldn't just give the tickets to Jen. I also got texts from both of his parents pleading with me to get the tickets, and also they forwarded an email to me that Jen sent to Josh and her parents for thanking them for the surprise. Apparently, she's also obsessed with Hamilton, and this is making her year. Also, we live in LA. Do they expect me to give up my plane ticket and hotel? Like, what the hell was their game plan here? Look, I completely understand wanting to help out with Jen, and I feel really bad that apparently her family is filled with weirdos, but this has been all so baffling, and the entitled behavior they displayed is a massive turnoff. I am not giving up these tickets. Is this selfish? But I also kind of want to cut my losses here. The attitude Josh displayed towards me outside of the brunch place was very unpleasant, to say the least, and he knows how disrespectful I find being called an expletive, so I'm of half the mind to just break up with him. He knew I had these tickets for a while, and I don't get why he decided to do this now at all. But should I contact Jen and explain at all? I just saw that she made a really excited post on Facebook about it. I'm not friends with her, but I am friends with my boyfriend, and he liked her post. I would straight up buy the tickets for her, but frankly, I can't afford these prices because I'm saving up for the NYC trip for my mum. How do I move forward? In the comments, this is really bizarre, and I think you should break up. I'm still super confused though, as I'm sure are you. Who would think that this was a reasonable way to go about things in a million years? I really don't understand how he can see texts from OP's mum freaking out with excitement about going to see this show and immediately think that the tickets are up for grabs. What a narcissistic butthole. It's honestly so strange. Something about this makes me feel like this goes beyond mere narcissism. Control, maybe. He was acting strange after she brought up how excited her mum was, which at first I put down to him acting strange because he was thinking, oh crap, I didn't realize her mum was looking forward to this so much. That's a problem for my ticket plan. But then, he took a phone call, presumably confirming the ticket handover, and afterwards he was happy? It's almost like he was acting strange that his girlfriend had something with someone else that she was looking forward to, and happy to have taken that away from her. I would dump him. It's not just about the tickets, but the lack of respect. He chose not to tell you and waited for it to come out in public in hopes that you'd step down to avoid making a scene. You sound like you have a good relationship with your mum. Take her to the show. Good mums are forever, boys are temporary. And the response to that comment is the update to this situation. OP says, yeah, I'm typing up an email dumping him right now. Normally, I think it's better to meet up IRL for things like this, but his behavior both during and outside brunch was scary, and I would prefer not to be alone with him right now. Maybe that's paranoid, but better safe than sorry. I think this is one of those situations where everything was so crazy, and they were acting like this is totally normal behavior, that I thought I was the insane one. Yeah, I wouldn't want to meet someone like that in person either. Plus, he does sound completely narcissistic and crazy. Don't be alone with that guy. My husband's browser history shattered my heart. I will try to make this as short as possible. It's a lot to unpack, but there is some backstory that's important. We've been married for 9 years and have 2 little kids. Our relationship has had its ups and downs throughout the years, but nothing terrible or that we couldn't pull through, mostly pure exhaustion from hard pregnancies, disconnection, and lack of sex because of said difficult pregnancies, and a super difficult infant who didn't sleep for 2 years, bankruptcy, a job that he hated. Yeah, it's been a little bit tough. But we're each other's person, you know? Like, I love this man to the ends of the earth. So when I tell you what I saw in his browser history not only shattered my heart, but I could literally feel pieces of my soul dying. So here we go. About a year ago, my husband and I had a huge heart-to-heart talk about reconnecting and wanting to get back to a new normal after kids. So we really started making us a priority, rebuilding our relationship, and sharing our most intimate feelings. My husband opened up to me about his desire to give a man oral, that he isn't attracted to men, but he's attracted to male genitals. Now, I have no problem with this. In fact, I felt this overwhelming sense of attraction to him in that moment. I loved how vulnerable and honest he felt like he could be with me. It was special. So we talked more and more about what that situation would look like, etc. We both agreed on our boundaries, and our number one rule, no matter what, is to always do anything sexual together. So we found a safe avenue to meet like-minded couples. We had one experience and it was great, but it was uncontrollably cut short. So we've opened our minds to the possibility of trying to find a male friend. In the meantime, husband gets a new job and is starting to travel. Fast forward 3 months after our last and only experience, and husband gets the news that he'll be traveling to Europe for 10 days. The weeks leading up to this trip, he was so distracted with what I thought was travel plans, bookings, and ordering things that he needed for his trip. I give him grace because he has never been to Europe, and I know that he's excited. Fast forward to the night before he leaves. We're laying in bed, cuddling, about to love on each other, and out of the blue he asks me, if I met a man in Europe, would you be okay with me doing stuff with him? My heart sank to my stomach, my throat closed up, and all I could squeak out was, no! I could tell that he was disappointed in my response, and he said, I don't want you to worry, I just needed to ask, and now I know. I couldn't talk. I just cried myself to sleep. He woke up before me that morning and sent a long, apologizing text to me to read when I woke up, telling me not to worry. I said no, and that is that. I just found this whole situation so odd and so random. Like, what? And then he asks me the night before he leaves? So I tell him that I'm super uncomfortable and I'm worried because he's leaving for 10 days and we can't unpack this together the way we need to. He literally leaves like 2 hours later. Every single internal alarm is going off. Red flags are waving in the wind, and I looked. at his browser history, and it broke my spirit. According to his history, 2 days after he found out he would be traveling, he created a sex dating profile for this particular area. Then he deleted his profile the morning after he asked me the question, then reactivated the account the moment he got to the airport. His profile read, seeking couples or a single male to show him around, have a few drinks, and if things go well, maybe some guy-on-guy playtime. Heart shattered. Then I see that he has spent hours researching happy ending massages, sex clubs, BDSM clubs, glory holes, and escorts. All female escorts. He researched pricing and location proximity to his hotel room. As far as I'm able to tell, nothing happened with anyone from the sex site, but it wasn't because of his lack of effort. He was trying really hard. But I have very little confidence in saying that I doubt something happened. Whether it was a strip club, which he can go but it has to be with me, one of our rules, or a sex club, or a happy ending massage, I've looked at our finances, and if anything did happen, he paid cash or has a card that I don't know about. So I'm just here, staring at our little kids, heartbroken, and hiding it from the world. I don't want our marriage to end, but I feel like this is going to be a very painful process, and I just want to be the best mum to our kids, and doing that while mending a broken heart is just the hardest thing that I've tried to do. I don't know how to tell him that I know. I also know now that he researches these things everywhere he travels and is most likely visiting a strip club twice a month when he's gone. I'll never understand hurting someone you love, even if you think they won't find out. In the comments, I can feel the sadness pouring from this post. I'm so sorry that you had to go through this and that he left you so unsure right before he had to travel. It is an insane disrespect towards you and a break of your trust, and you should most definitely tell him that you know. You fought for your marriage. You gave him space to be vulnerable with you. You fulfilled his fantasy and was more than okay with it. And he repaid you with disrespect and lies. That's not someone who deserves you. He needs to know that you know, and I'm afraid that it might be the end. Unless you plan to stay in a marriage where your husband cheats on you and continually wants to be with other people, then you need to leave this marriage and co-parent. He might not have got with someone on that website, but he probably went to one of the in-person places and cheated. Exactly this. It's not what the husband wants. He will find a way to do it with or without your approval. Do yourself a favor and run. He'll be happy off doing his thing, and you'll find someone who wants the same thing in a relationship as you do, and you will look back and think, thank God I left. Even if he didn't physically cheat, he proved that he's morally and emotionally capable of doing so. Whether or not the physical expression of that act is there, the emotional intent in breach of trust is very much there. I caught my former partner attempting to cheat. He was soliciting and getting rejected. I know he didn't do the actual deed, but the sheer fact that he would have, if given the opportunity, broke my heart. It wasn't any different than if he had done it. He broke my trust and took the security blanket that I had right from under me. And OP says, yes, this. I am so sorry that happened to you. I feel like my world has been flipped upside down. So sorry. That's horrible. I guess you know the real person you married now. Best of luck in what you decide. You know that he definitely looked into this and has broken your boundaries. I'm not sure there's a way to get back on track again knowing what he really wants. OP replies, hours worth of time was spent viewing every profile on that sex dating site, every strip club, sex club, swinger club, gay bar, burlesque shows, every escort site, every escort that's his type. After putting the times together, most of it was done while he was either in bed next to me, while I was sleeping, or any moment he had to go to the bathroom at home, and all day long at work. I just feel so ill. And now, onto the update. About 2 days after my post, I had a dream that I had a heart attack because of all this stress, and I decided that enough was enough. I hugged him that morning and told him that we needed to talk about something tonight after the kids were in bed. So he had to think about it all day, and I had more time to prepare my words. Around 8 p.m. when the house was silent, I asked if he had anything that he wanted to tell me, and that this was his one and only chance to come clean to me about anything he had done that would hurt me. He confessed to going to a strip club in the town he has to travel to often, not Europe. I just looked at him and said, keep going. He kinda stumbled with words and looked confused and slightly panicked, so I said, here, let me just hand you my phone. I handed him my phone, and on the screen I had pulled up my Reddit post. I said it's probably better for you to read it because I don't know if I can get the words out properly. He read everything and some of the comments. He immediately apologized for everything. He said he visited one strip club and one sex club while in Europe. He said he walked in, got grossed out, and walked out of the sex club, but stayed at the strip club for a few drinks. I just let him talk, and I cried and cried, hoping that I could get it all out so I would be able to utter the words, I don't believe you. Those words came out of my mouth at a volume and intensity that I don't know that I've ever felt before. I don't believe you! Came barreling through the tears, and then the anger hit. For the first time in our relationship, I don't believe you. That sentence took both of our breaths away. I could see the feeling of failure and remorse on his face. I asked, why? Like I need an effing answer as to why you felt the need or desire to do this. Even though I do believe he didn't actually physically do anything with anyone, he reassured me 100 times. Am I dumb for believing that? Maybe, but my gut has been pretty spot on, so I'm following it on this. He told me, just like a lot of you have said, that the app, the research of escorts, was just another, more real feeling, porn. That he absolutely could have done things with people there, but he never ever had a plan to go through with anything. Because I said no to his request about hooking up with someone in Europe if he met the right person. He said he just looked and masturbated to the thought of knowing that he basically could buy a good time anywhere he wanted with these people, and that it's legal. I wanted to punch him, but I didn't. As I balled my fists, I screamed, grow up! You're a husband, a father, a son, a brother. You have a life so many people can't even dream about. You have a wife right in front of you, willing to go above and beyond for this relationship and your sexual curiosities, and what do? Focus all of your time and energy on strangers on the internet, shatter my trust for you, blasted through a boundary that was set about solo visits to strip clubs because you felt like that was the lesser of the evils, and you've put so much time and effort into this research, you might as well reward yourself for not hooking up with the escorts in Europe. He really didn't have much to say as I paused for a breath, other than, "You're right. I've been awful and I don't know what to say to make you believe that I wouldn't harm our family. I wouldn't harm your health by being with any of those people I researched. I hope that you know that I know how lucky I am, and I don't know why I can't control myself." I told him that I absolutely believe that he has a porn addiction that has now turned extremely dangerous for us as a couple and family. He agreed. Without defense, he agreed to everything I said. We are going to start counseling together, and singularly. There is so much more to say, but I'm tired. This has been so taxing, and I'm just getting through it. I know I'm going to get into so much hell for staying with him. I've made it perfectly clear that this is it. My words to him were, if he messes up, the kids and I are out. I told him that I had to sit down and imagine a completely new life with the kids. I've had to endure that heartache of imagining our lives moving on without him. I have already calloused my heart to the thought, which should scare the hell out of you. But also know this, I will not go down silently. This is your chance to be a better man right here, right now. He has been amazing to us since then. He has owned up to his word and kept his promises so far. He has been communicating with me about so many things. He has decreased his porn habits by probably 90%. He is dating me again and playing with the kids more. I feel like I'm seeing the person that I married again, but I'm also so scared that when this honeymoon phase ends, what's next? Ugh. People, just don't hurt your person. Make life beautiful and just love them with all you've got. In the comments, the trust is already broken and he violated a boundary that he now knows you won't actually hold firm on. He told you that he wanted something that you could never give him. It's only a matter of time before he wants that itch scratched again. All you've done is point out where he screwed up covering his tracks, so when he tries to step out again, he'll know how to keep it from you. Is it really worth fighting for? You can find another man who doesn't have a porn addiction, doesn't lie or cheat. I think you need to start planning what you need to do when this all stops again. I'm not saying divorce now, although I would have. Look into your options. Find numbers for lawyers, get evidence, find relatives, etc. that you can be with. You need to put you and the kids first because he is definitely intent on putting his needs over all of yours. One thing super stuck out. He said he doesn't know why he can't control himself. That is pure gaslighting and a load of crap. That is him building in an excuse. Before you get cozy again, I strongly suggest you demand in writing a full confession. Demand it includes why he did it and that he not try to hide behind any addiction or I don't know answers. You need a clear written explanation for his lack of morals and why he believes he can actually change. I also hope you are demanding counseling, for him mainly, but also for you as a couple. I also hope you now have 100% access to all electronics and accounts, etc.